orilla del mundo, lo que no expresa es baldío. Creo que he visto una luz al otro lado del río.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, as promised, I'd be bringing you some very, very interesting guests with better topics, more interesting topics, and here goes the attempt. These two gentlemen belong to a family that my family has known for ages. I'll even venture to say the early 80s, maybe not late 70s, but early 80s. And when you grow up as a Latino in Windsor or in Canada, you seem to have a radar when you're young as to where all the other Latinos are, where they are, where they're from, what team do they like, what do they support, what their favorite music is. You know a little bit about everything about them. And my father and my mother could not speak more highly of this family at all. They were always so nice to us, great hosts when they hosted a party. They would always attend our family's parties. We'd see them around the soccer field. They were the first Colombians that I've ever met, leading into many more Colombians that I would go on to meet in my life, and paved the way for great expectations from every other Colombian that I've met in life. But coming from such a well-educated family, well-adjusted family, I'd had the pleasure of meeting the Villamizars at an early age, sharing Tecumseh Soccer Club, playing experiences with them. And over the years, we never had long tenures of playing together. But what I did notice is that not one person had anything bad to say about the Villamizars, ever. And I find that such a rarity in today's society, especially because, you're dealing with so many different people from different cultures, from different viewpoints and whatever. And especially for a family that is politically active. It's funny because you get all kinds of people coming out from different ends of the political spectrum, having their say. Maybe this is a Canadian thing that we're a bit more tolerant, but I don't know. I'm not sure if I'm prouder of the Villamizars or perhaps, dare I say it, a more lenient society than I thought that we were in. But either way, it's just a testament to who they are as people. So without further ado, I want to introduce Enver and Paul Villamizar. Thanks, boys.
Rob, good to see you. Great to be here. Thanks for doing this, and very, very nice intro. I didn't expect that. It was very nice.
Well,
it was very flattering.
Listen, the pleasure is mine, and on behalf of all soccer community, especially the Latino community, I cannot tell you how nervous I was to come here today. No, I'm serious. It's such a pleasure for me to be here because it's not often that you hear your parents speak so highly of people. Usually you hear that, there's not anything sinister to a compliment or anything like that. But when somebody goes on waves and waves and waves about how nice they are, how educated they are, and your family was put up on a pedestal, especially by my mom. And because she always walked away, I think, with the greatest conversations, the greatest food for thought of many discussions that they had. And so by coming here today, knowing Enver a bit more than I know Paul, but knowing of Paul, having done my research on Paul, I had to say I was incredibly intimidated because, like many other people in the soccer community, I don't educate my experience with education and my education with any kind of experience. So when I know I'm about to enter into a realm where there's more educated people than I am, I quietly shit my pants a bit. So again, with the utmost respect, I'm here. I'm excited. I'm happy. I told my girlfriend I interviewed the Villamizars today, and she was pumped, and she doesn't know that much about soccer. And I was telling the guys that too. And a lot of internet questions came, a lot of emails, a lot of text questions, which is great. So again, the topic for today's podcast, just because it's so relevant, especially 2021, is politics in sport. Not so much sport in politics, but politics in sport. Is it relevant? And by just showing the relevancy, if it is as relevant as I think, I'd like to build the story here between from these two educated people in front of me. Just kind of, I guess you could say, setting up the plot to where it's going to thicken and where we actually get to the political question. Before we get there, I think it's so important to discuss your roots and origins. As somebody very wise told me that people who make great progress in life know where they've come from and know their origins well. So you need to know the past track and the future track. So I'd like to start with you both. I'd like to start, whoever wants to take this question. I want to talk about the origins. I want to talk about Colombia. I want to talk about your dad and your mom. Please, we'll start with Paul. Tell us about your mom first and foremost.
Well, yeah, my mom was, very important figure in both of our lives and everyone's lives, I think, in our family. She's a very strong woman, very, opinionated. She, like, in terms of the soccer aspect, she was not that was my dad, right? Like, that was all through my dad's side. But my mom, did a lot for us, was always, constant. She was, always doing like 100 things. She's been politically active my whole life. And like, did a lot of stuff to raise us, as well as, always, contributing politically to what she felt was the right things, be it, organizing with the union, with CPCML, always kind of just doing 100 things, and really kind of, impressive lady that we both kind of, I'm sure, took a lot from.
Now, did that give you the false notion that you could multitask? Because that accolade is only for women.
Yeah.
Women can multitask. Men cannot. So when you see somebody of that ilk and they're able to multitask as well as she can, it must present you with some false sense of
no,
of
I mean,
objective.
I didn't have a false sense of it, because I don't think I could ever do like how much stuff she does.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember as a kid, she would be up and sleeping 3-4 hours after working and doing something else and helping us with whatever we needed. Or she was, coming to school when I was in trouble and talking to the principal. She did that. She did that quite often.
Nunchucks.
Yeah.
Nunchucks.
Yeah.
Nunchucks, Paul.
Yeah, I got into a little bit of trouble when I was really young, and my dad had made me play nunchucks out of plastic, and I loved them, and I brought them to school, and then some kid kind of rubbed me the wrong way, and I used the nunchucks, and so I got suspended when I was in kindergarten for that. And so my mom was always very understanding about the trouble that I got into when I was really young, and always trusted me and gave me a chance without just kind of. And then my dad would be the hammer, I guess.
Exactly.
But yeah, my mom was always the
Latino hammer.
Yeah, my dad was the hammer, even though my dad was probably like that when he was young.
He's very cheering you on.
Yeah, but he was always, he was disciplined about that. My mom was.
Can you tell the audience what your dad's favorite curse word was for you, Paul? When he was coming down with a hammer?
I mean, it definitely, his favorite curse word was hijo de puta. I'm sure. Yeah. That's the Colombian. It's all Colombians, I feel like. So that's his.
My dad's favorite for me was, it's not so bad in English, but he would say, animal, que animal que sos.
Yeah.
Just call me, you animal. You're not even a human. You're
Yeah.
an animal.
Yeah. I mean, to be fair, I think I just blocked out most of the yelling, because it was just, he would get very angry.
He had the Latino temper, the quintessential Latino temper, right? That would fly off the handle.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So your mom's origins, Paul. I mean, how did, like, in terms of her ethnicity, she was born in Canada.
Yep.
And her background, where did she get her gusto for politics and education?
I'd imagine came from our grandma, like on her side, who was an immigrant from the Czech Republic and fled Europe right before the Nazi invasion, right?
Sure.
Right.
Oh, right. Yeah, she was.
Yeah.
She remembers seeing the Nazi soldiers enter Czech Republic. She was Jewish.
Madre mia.
And so her part of her family was able to leave, but then a lot of the other parts of the family weren't.
Is that right?
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah. So I mean, Enver probably has more insight into that
Sure.
than I do. He probably knows the topic a little bit better.
Was she
about
born
mom's
in
origins.
Czech, on the Czech side or Slovakian side?
Grandma, I believe Czech side. Yeah, she was half
She was from
Austrian,
Prague.
half Czech.
Yeah, she was. She was. I
Yeah.
think she was born in Prague.
I'm pretty sure she was born in Prague.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure she was born and raised in Prague. But, she was, she stood up for what she believed in. Our grandma was like, not super highly educated because at that time that was not the way it went. But she spoke like a bunch of different languages. She took classes for fun when she was here in Canada, like our grandma. And I think some of that passed down to my mom.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
What a story.
Yeah. And I
What a
think
story.
you have to be pretty headstrong to take off to Colombia like she did when she was pretty young. And so
the interesting thing was she came to Canada as a Czech Jew who only found out she was Jewish when the Nazis categorized people, because most Czechs who were Jewish were Czechs.
Sure.
So she only found out when the Nazis said, "Okay, you're Jewish," so she left and then married a German Canadian. So she came to Canada, and my grandfather Ernie, small town Eganville, Ontario, up near Ottawa.
Yeah.
And he was a Canadian, like he was born in
Sure.
Canada, his family of Jewish origins. And she was involved even in the war effort. She would be translating cables from overseas to Canada, because she spoke Czech, she spoke German, and she spoke, I think it was just Czech and German she translated. And they were looking for correspondence with Nazi sympathizers in Canada, but also communist sympathizers in Canada. So that was her job in Ottawa with the RCMP, where she met my grandfather, who was in the Canadian Army. He was an engineer who joined the Army because he wanted to show that this isn't what Germans stood for, what the Nazis were. So they got married in Ottawa. No, they met in Ottawa, where she was working there, and he was stationed there with the Army. And then they moved to take over his father's store in Ottawa, and he became mayor. He was a Conservative Party mayor of a small town in Canada, and he was the mayor under which they built all the main public infrastructure, public works, water, electricity.
The Reeve, it was called the
Reeve.
Reeve.
Yeah.
The Reeve.
And they were, and the Conservatives of that day were very much nation building and looking out for the common good and things. So he always, so I think my mom really had those two big influences. One was anti-war, from her mom's experience, and then her grandfather, he was involved in politics, like at the local level, and so that's why I think for her also she saw politics as something very normal and natural, and then she moved to Colombia.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's, it's amazing. Yet, dare I say it seems to be such a quintessential Canadian beginning as to how a family starts over here. But Eganville aside, I think that the story is miraculous, and you hear it so often about that generation, their war stories and things like that. Doesn't it make you feel so coddled and so appreciative, as that we don't have to deal with maybe a tenth of the things that they have to deal with. But regardless, it is amazing, inspirational. And Enver, your dad falls in you, my friend.
Okay,
Let's go.
It's a heavy weight. So yeah, my dad grew up in Colombia. From what I know from the talks we've had about his early childhood, he was a real shit disturber. Like he told me stories. He went to a school, nuns ran the school, right? And he would get in so much crap that at one point he like lifted up a nun's skirt and whacked. Like he was rebelling against this religious discipline, right, in the school. And they made him go and run on the track outside for hours, just nonstop. Right? So
And stare at the sun too.
Yeah, it was like in the glaring heat on the in the mountains would have been, or no, this would have been in the plains in Cucuta, which was outside of Bogota, so very hot near the border of Venezuela. And he would have to run around the track, and so I think he was trying to take credit for our running careers as cross country track athletes by saying, I was also a runner too, but he was doing it forced running. He had a forced march, whereas we kind of did it by choice. God. But not taking credit, but like saying, this is where you get your endurance from.
Sure.
But so he grew up in Colombia, was a real. I remember hearing from my uncle too. So his brother, that my uncle would get into trouble at school, and my dad would come in and he would sort the problem out. Like he was the what? He was the heavy, I guess.
He was the enforcer.
He was the enforcer, and he was younger though than his brother, right?
Sure.
So he he grew up in Colombia. He was kind of started getting politically active in high school. He said he was at a high school that was very progressive, a lot of just ordinary kids, from working class and poor backgrounds, and his teachers were very progressive as well.
Mm-hmm.
And they kind of instilled in him the idea that you should try to change Colombia. This would have been in the post Second World War period when U.S. was really starting to try to get its hands on Colombia more so. So then he kind of started becoming politically aware. Then he went to the United States to play soccer at Wilmington University. This was a Quaker university in Ohio.
Okay.
And he had known his girlfriend was a Quaker. She was American.
Is that right?
Her dad, I just talked to my dad about this. Her dad was a big head of the Peace Corps in Colombia, which if you've watched any of the stuff about the history of Colombia, you may know that they played a pretty bad role in some cases, bringing in the ability to process cocaine and other things. It was the Peace Corps that brought in that technology.
Oh my!
Before that, coca was just a cultural thing,
sure,
right? But the processing of it, the refining of it.
Yeah.
So he was dating this Quaker girl, and he was able to make an arrangement to get a scholarship to go to the U.S. To study chemical engineering at this Wilmington University, and he played goalie, and he was a pretty good goalie. Got some training there. I think they're like, oh, he's Colombian, he must be good. So that's why he was able to kind of come and fit right in. But he said that's where he really started getting. He started getting politically active because that was the height of the Vietnam War. That was 68, 69, and that's where he actually became political. It was in the United States, opposing the Vietnam War, and they offered him a chance to stay in the U.S. They said, you can stay and continue your studies, and you're fast track to citizenship, but you have to enroll.
Amazing.
In the army. So he said, no fucking way. And he's like, I'm not going to, I'm opposing this war.
Sure.
You're going to give me this.
Luckily for us.
Yeah, luckily for us. So
I'm sorry to back you up there.
Yeah.
They offered him citizenship.
So the U.S. government or whoever the immigration official said, you can stay,
yeah.
In terms of your status. Okay, I think the issue was that he finished school or he was going to stop his studies. And so they said he had work lined up on a farm.
Sure.
And the arrangement was you could stay so long as
it would have
been get residency, and then you enlist.
Which is still active to this day, that they take like a lot of Mexican immigrants, for example, and offer them residency. And if they enroll in the military, which is still active, but also they pulled a lot of that. So like they didn't even give them some of them residency. There's a lot of issues that they basically I remember hearing about. So it's like they send them to war, and then some of them still don't even get
that was the thing during the Iraq War, right? Yeah. That some of them were told, if you go and fight, then you'll get citizenship. Right. So he was offered that deal. He didn't take it out of political considerations. He went back to Colombia. I think was more politically involved at that point. The civil war in Colombia was still going on, or was happening at that time. He had the guerrillas, but he said the guerrillas weren't really a big presence in the big cities where he was and things. He would just see pamphlets and things, and that kind of awakened him to the idea that there's a different road for Colombia and for the world. And,
sure.
And kind of, but the experience in the U.S. really solidified that. And came back to Colombia, and he met my dad, or met my mom. The story is at like a party at the Canadian Embassy. I don't know. It sounds so scandalous, right? Like, yeah, it was a party at the or the consulate. Maybe it was the consulate in Bogota.
Sure.
My mom was there, teaching with. I can't remember the name of the organization now. It was a government-sponsored organization that would do English language teaching around the world. So she had gone to Colombia, met him in Bogota, and then it was like, I think very quickly.
He liked the gringas.
She wasn't a gringa.
A couple cumbias later, and then that was it.
They traveled across Colombia. Like they did this trip across Colombia, like hitchhiking. And,
is that right?
Like, they were telling us stories about like being in the back of a truck with like just I think it was mangoes or coconuts. I don't know what it was, and they just like slept on it. And they slept on a beach in Cartagena. And like my mom
and got robbed.
They got robbed. They had their passports like under their heads.
Oh my!
And like somebody came and dug it. So anyway, after that they decided they moved to Canada. They got married in Canada, and they moved to Eganville first. So that to me, to this day, is like I look at it as a pretty hard experience here. This Colombian kid going to this what's considered pretty hick small town in northern Ontario, eastern
conservative
Ontario.
town in Canada.
Yeah. But he says anyway, it's interesting the stories he tells about it because he worked in my grandfather's store. They had a general store.
And then working for your father-in-law.
And working
too.
for your
yeah.
father-in-law, right? Your daughter brings back this Colombian guy, and it's like, well, okay.
Culture
buddy.
shock on both sides.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Long hair.
Yeah.
That's a sitcom in Hollywood waiting
Yeah.
to be written.
But he speaks very highly of like just the ordinary people in the small town and how they
Sure.
really welcomed him in, and he felt really good. There were some who were real, pricks and
Of
stuff,
course.
as there would be anywhere, but he said that he was really welcomed, by the workers and by the people he worked with. He worked, I think, in the butcher area.
Yeah, he worked at the butchers.
And there's still these, when we go back up to visit
People ask
family up
about
there,
him.
people ask, how's your dad doing?
Yeah.
So they made a big, because
That's all
he was
right.
probably the first Latin American they had ever met.
Yeah, it's I'm sure it was
Yeah.
rare. I mean,
Yeah.
even in the 80s and the 90s, like it was still just kind of fairly
Yeah.
monotone up there.
And this would have been,
Okay.
69, 70, or probably 70, 71,
70s,
something like
yeah.
that.
Oh, my.
So yeah, they
Oh my
and
God.
there they went to Wilfrid Laurier University. The two of them went to study there. Then got very heavily involved in politics in the 70s with the Communist Party of Canada, Marxist-Leninist, and that was kind of. Then they moved to Windsor. My mom got a job with the Essex County District School Board at the time. I think it was still called that. She was a psychometrist, so assessing kids if they had learning disabilities and things, and then determining with the teachers what supports they could use and stuff. And then my dad, so he came to Canada, I think he worked at Chrysler first. That was one of his first jobs in Windsor, I believe. Had a really bad experience on the line at Chrysler. He was convinced that, like, he said there's, like, biker gangs organized at Chrysler, and they were trying to, like, kill me, like, because I was standing up to them and stuff. And he was like, they tried to get me to put my head under a hood to do some stuff, and I knew it was unsafe, and I refused to do it. And so, he had a really bad experience, I think, with at Chrysler and that thing. So I don't know, I really don't know the whole story there, but that's kind of what he talked about.
Wow, that is incredible.
Yeah.
So wow. So he started off at Chrysler. I had no idea, but well,
Yeah, I'm not sure if that was his first, but that's I remember hearing stories around that time of him. He worked at Chrysler for a period of time on the line. I don't think they were building minivans yet at that point. It's like 84, I think. The minivan starts 83. So maybe it was right around the minivan time, or it was cube vans. I think they were still building.
Yeah, I never heard. I mean, I remember he didn't have a good time there, but I never heard the details, or if it was like labor related or what.
Sure.
I never heard about biker gangs. So
Yeah,
that's news. To me.
yeah.
I don't know about
Maybe that was the version I got. I don't know.
Maybe, yeah.
But I don't think so. I
Depends.
mean, I wouldn't be surprised at that
Right.
time.
So wow. Okay, so from there, I mean, what a colorful history.
That's how we got to Windsor. That's
Yeah,
how,
I
that's how the
was gonna
Villamizars
I was
came to
gonna
Windsor.
say, that's amazing. That's amazing. I thought the story of my parents meeting at Savette's, which is the old Zellers, with my dad continuously approaching my mom with a Julio Iglesias record, saying, phone number? It was bold, but that's bold.
Smooth.
Hats off
Sounds
to you.
smooth,
Well,
yeah.
I want to
after
know
the
what my
fifth
dad. I want to know what my
rejection.
dad. I want to know what my dad was doing at the Canadian consulate.
Yeah.
That's what I want to know.
Maybe he was hired. Maybe we get
Yeah,
the
yeah,
story
yeah.
was he
Maybe it
was
was
he was a double agent. Maybe, you
It
know?
was a great place to meet getting guests.
Yeah, I've never heard the story of like how they approached or anything. So actually, maybe we have to dig into that.
Well, he
one
knew.
day.
Obviously, he knew. So he was dating an American before that, and then he obviously. So he must have been in the circles of the North American
Well, yeah.
expat community, right?
When I was in
don't know.
Colombia and we were talking to like relatives and stuff, they definitely said that like dad hung around those areas where like the like the gringos were. And so,
Okay.
like, I was like I guess that was his thing, and there's a history there, I guess. So you
Must
know
be
what I
more
mean?
to it. Must be
Yeah.
more
Yeah,
to
so
it.
I don't want to comment because it's secondhand. And I was,
How many
cousins
times have
and
you both
uncles.
been to Colombia?
Oh man. Let's say as kids, I probably went 4 times. I mean, when I was my dad took me like
we both went as babies.
Okay.
probably
So I don't
like
know.
3 or 4 months old, like really
Yeah.
young. My dad
Sorry.
took us back to Colombia.
We were presented as
Yeah, we were
babies.
presented.
Basically, I'm sure we have pictures.
Baby
so
Simbas.
that I can
Yeah.
remember at least 4 or 5. I mean, I've been twice in the last 6 years or so. Like we went back a couple times.
Yeah.
I went with my parents,
Yeah.
and then I went back for my grandma's funeral. But yeah, we've been decent amount of time. We went.
7, 8
There was a
times.
long period where we hadn't gone, and that
Yeah.
like until about 6 years ago or 2016, 17, where I had gone. Like we hadn't been since '94.
So I went in 2011, or not 2011.
Enver had been.
sorry,
Enver had been. I
shortly
hadn't.
after our
I
first
hadn't.
daughter was born. But there was a period during the height of the Civil War and things were really bad. Where
Yeah.
we didn't
We didn't go.
we didn't
No.
go. And even
Yeah.
when we did go before that, Like I still to this day, it was surreal looking back. Like I remember platoons of army soldiers this was like, if you watch Narcos, this was the period when the height of the drug war.
Sure.
And there's platoons of army soldiers driving around. You paid off cops when you got ticketed. There was a bomb that went off when we were there.
Yeah.
And at the time, it was just like, okay.
Yeah.
Now looking back, you're like, holy crap. Like,
So during that time, like Dad had gone a few times just
Yeah.
to visit family, and you know what I mean, like to stay in touch. And I remember hearing stories. He was like, you know, there was just a bomb just went off down the street,
My God.
and Bogota actually, I don't think was like the center of it all,
Mhm.
but it definitely spilled in at that point. I
Well, that
remember.
was
Would have
when
been Medellin or Barranquilla?
I think so. Yeah, I think Bogota was more like it was kind of out of the fray, and so a
Okay.
lot of the main like issues and bombings were not necessarily in Bogota, but definitely at that point, at the height of it, I think it was.
So the big ones
yeah.
like the police station and government buildings and
Yeah.
stuff. Like there was
They were really
it
targeting.
was all over the country. And to this day, just remember coming back. I think it was 90. I don't know, man. Maybe 90. Maybe even 89, 90. Coming back from a trip to Colombia and just being like, it kind of clicked that people live in very different ways under very different conditions, and there's a big gap in the world between, like, I remember
Yeah.
people, like a kid working in my great grandmother's home. So her mom worked as a orderly in the house, and the daughter lived with her and worked in the house. And this kid was my age, this girl.
Right.
I remember she's working to feed her family and
Yeah.
serve us here as like visiting.
Yeah.
And then, you know, just seeing in the street people begging for food and kids,
Yep.
right? Like that was the thing I remember. Kids.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Young kids.
Really young kids, just and then it was so normal, which was
Yeah.
really shocking at a young age. It's just so normal to see young kids begging. That
Yeah.
could be you, right? That could be you, that you won the lottery. You weren't on that side.
You're exactly right. The first time I witnessed that in Argentina, we sat down at a cafe. It's a quick stop while we're traveling in downtown Mendoza. And they bring out the empanadas, because as you do when you're there. And we sat down, 30 seconds in. This kid comes, he's got to be 7 years old, with a long strip of plastic gum wrapped individually.
Yeah.
Off of chicle.
Yep.
And I thought my mom was going to start crying right then and there. She knew how young the kid was. And, you know, you could see her welling up and giving the money. And I was like, don't show the money. Yeah. Because your heart's crying. As soon as you show money, number 4, number 5, number 6, everybody's in the same situation.
Yeah.
They're going to come. I'm like, Dad, you know, that was the same kid.
Yeah.
And, you know, if I didn't have that experience, you don't get perspective, right? As sure you guys know. Like when you first travel there and then you come back to Canada, you have this overwhelming sense of guilt. I found. I don't know about you guys. Yeah. I felt guilty a lot of the time.
I remember coming back, and after that, I did so much housework for like, to be fair, for like 3 or 4 months. Like I would
Sure.
unload the dishwasher, load the dishwasher. And I remember being in my head, like something about that experience, seeing that kid. It went away. My parents at first were like,
Yeah, I don't remember him doing that.
Is he
I don't know.
right?
Maybe I was too young, but I
But-
cannot vouch for
But
that.
I remember by housework, I mean just like helping around the kitchen and stuff. Because it's something in that experience was just like, holy shit, you
Yeah.
know, like there's a big difference between the way we live here, and then as I got older, I started to realize like it's at the expense of the people there that the conditions for the middle class and especially the upper class here are what they are. So then it became more connected to like it's not just these poor kids.
Mm-hmm.
It's like the extraction and of the wealth from South America, especially.
Massive.
All of that is huge. Like everything, the not to mention just the labor now, human labor, but the resources, the everything. That's why, you know, these banks in Canada, which are some of the biggest in the world, are able to have their wealth and all that because they were part of stealing these resources and things. So then it really, so that I think changed my perspective too. That it's like, this is why we're able to live the way we live, is because of what it's like in other countries.
Sure.
And our banks, our companies, Canadian mining in South America is like they're the biggest. They're the extractors of everything.
That's right.
You know?
We
So
we
we're
don't know
connected.
from how our investments work for us, and if a lot more, if let's say, I would say 5% and I'm being generous, of the population, Canadian population, know just how we can make our money. It's usually built off the backs of people or off the service that's not ours. I remember asking my dad in 92, why? And I asked the most naive Canadian question. Why is there such a gap?
Yeah.
I remember him telling me straight out. He goes, look, in Canada, we get a first chance, a second chance, a third chance, maybe even a fourth chance. And then you might have to go to welfare, right? Here, you may be born without any chances.
Yeah.
And in order to get out, what you end up seeing is a small percentage of the population doing something remarkably well because they're going to be driven to do whatever it takes to get out. He goes, people want to know why Argentinians produce amazing strikers. Sometimes when you're scoring a goal, it's not just because of the enjoyment.
Right.
It's because you're figuring out ways to get like out of your barrio real quick.
Yeah.
And I thought, oh my God. And it must have been 30 years later, Arsene Wenger said the same thing.
Yeah.
Then how are these Latinos coming from South America? Why do they make the best strikers? He goes, well, you try playing for yourself, playing for the German sport, and then knowing that if you have that small chance of making it out, that those goals mean a whole lot more than just 3 points in a game.
What's the pressure of scoring a goal when like you lived with the pressure of survival your whole life?
That's the thing,
right?
It's night and day. It is. It's night and day. But no, I'm glad you said that. My brother and I always think about those days and always think about how it shaped us, and we were always unsure about how we felt. You know, coming back, what do we do? How do you do it? How do you help going back? You know, but anyways, I'm sure we'll be diving into that again a little bit later. But so all that being said, did you have a choice of the sport you guys are going to play? Did you have a choice?
Okay, so I was first. Like I was obviously first. So I to this day remember, and I can still visualize it.
I remember it too because I saw it. I was there.
You witnessed it. I was on the porch on our house on Jeanette, and it was first practice. Swiss Chalet Soccer Club, Swiss Chalet team, Windsor Soccer Club. Shout out to all the folks on Swiss Chalet. And it was my first practice. I'm like, Dad, I'm not going. I don't want to play soccer. And he's like, "You're going." Like, you don't understand that.
Oh, there is a question.
I don't want to go. Right? Exactly.
I can still picture it to this day in the driveway.
Yeah,
I can still picture it.
I'm screaming. I remember his van sitting in the driveway. Right? I'm screaming. I'm crying. I'm like, with everything I have, I'm like, I'm not playing soccer. I don't want to go. I don't know why. To be honest, it wasn't because I wanted to play something else. Maybe it was because I was shy. I don't know.
Uh-huh.
But like, for some reason I was adamant not going, and like I was forced to play soccer. And honestly, after that practice, like I loved it. I was in, like it was all in after that. But to say whether I did not have a choice at that moment, right? I was forced. Yeah. And so obviously the pattern was set, right? It was like
but it's totally different for me because I was desperate to play because I would go and watch and like I was sitting on the sidelines. I was like, yeah, this is great because like obviously you follow your big brother, as I'm sure your brother did.
Yeah.
And so like Enver was playing and I was like, this is great. Like I was just like a little shit around the game and I just wanted to play and I just like
they had just started mini soccer, I think, when you started.
So we started earlier, yeah.
So we only got to start, I think, when we were like
5 or 6.
No, even older, I think.
Is that right?
Older because
it was a little older. Well, you played baseball too, didn't you?
I played t-ball first, so I played t-ball. That was the
embarrassing.
I played t-ball first. Never played hockey. I did karate. I did t-ball.
Wow.
Ran cross country. Those were the sports. But yeah, t-ball was first actually, which is weird. Why
I think that was just Canada. Maybe there wasn't as much organized soccer at a young age.
You think hockey? Maybe. Though, I guess t-ball was cheaper, easier to hit the ball. Obviously too. I didn't have to have skills. But soccer for us, we started. I feel like it was 10 years old. I think Windsor Soccer Club only started in like 84. I think 83 or 84. So I would have been 84. No, 7 years old.
Yeah, I started 84. Knights of Columbus. That was my first.
84.
You were proud because I think I started when I was like 10. 6 or 7. So I started after you. So you would have been 9 probably.
But they didn't have that league, that younger league.
But I'm
where
trying
you
to.
could like pick flowers and look at them while you were playing. They didn't have that at the time.
Okay, so Enver's. That's a
I'm
dig.
saying in general, my daughter.
That's a that's a dig.
That's not a dig.
Because they always say like when I first started playing, they're like my dad was like you were just like picking flowers and looking, and
my dad was ready to disown him.
Yeah, and I was like as I like playing goalie, I remember like they scored a goal. I was like, oh, what's going on? Like I was distracted, so like I desperately wanted to play, but I was just not very good. I'm sure at the beginning, and kind of just like I got easily distracted, I guess, by other stuff, and then like that was and then I missed the game.
But it's mini soccer at that age.
Yeah, at that age. But that was always the story that you were. I was picking grass in the corner at the beginning.
My brother was the same. He had to play with me, so he had to play year up all the time. And when the Dickie D came,
Dickie D,
he would run off the field.
During the game.
He'd run during the game, didn't care. Just I gotta get
Your
the
dad must have
priorities. It's priorities. It's priorities.
It was that picking dandelions, doing the moonwalk on the field. He was anything but what he grew up to be.
The moonwalk on the field.
Oh
has the
man!
I've seen
girls scored on
before,
him because he loved being goalie. He loved wearing a goalie gloves.
Yeah.
Girls scored on him one time and quit. It was a
Your
roller
dad's
coaster.
heart breaks in like 9 places, right?
Oh,
I know,
geez.
yeah.
He was. You would not have, envisioned at all what was ahead of him if you just looked at the first 2 years, maybe. But no, I empathize tremendously. So you got into it. You established a flow. You went through the rigmarole of House League, of Windsor Soccer Club, and then you started to poke at the competitive game. You with Filippo Ferrante.
Yep.
Right?
Actually, I think my first foreign competitive was one practice with FC Nationals.
Oh yeah.
And I didn't like it. I don't know why. I didn't like it.
Is that
like,
right?
I don't want to do that.
With the 77s or the 78s?
It would have been 77s.
So with Cardoso.
With Cardoso.
With Alberto.
Yeah. And I think my dad and Cardoso had some issues, so maybe he projected some of that.
Windsor soccer politics.
Yeah, exactly. So after that, I played for my dad. My dad coached in Windsor Soccer Club, Faca Construction.
Okay.
Great times. I remember what a buddy of mine calls truck therapy, going home and being told all the things.
Best team name in the history of Windsor Soccer Club. Faca Construction. Yeah.
It was Faca. Come on.
Yeah.
Facas are listening. Come on.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I remember fondly and also terribly that being coached by your dad.
Sure.
As in, like, I see it now as a dad. I'm like, I don't want to coach my daughters, or at least I want to coach them to the point where they then say, Dad, I don't want you coaching me anymore, because I think you have a vested stake. And I remembered those drives home. Ooh. And they were bad, right? Like it's for a while it was not fun.
I got it longer than you did. So.
Yeah, for sure.
So
then I went to play for Tecumseh competitive, and then Paul played for Tecumseh as well. And my dad then moved and coached my brother for Tecumseh, and then Filippo Ferrante was my coach for Tecumseh, and that was kind of the four.
We were together for a year.
Yeah.
At Tecumseh.
Yeah.
And then I left.
I got to tell you a story, by the way. I distinctly remember playing indoor. We were at Windsor Arena playing. Remember where or not Windsor, Detroit. When we played in Cobo Hall.
Yeah.
And I remember one game. I think it was the first game I played indoor with you. You were playing. You were facing our goalie. You walked back. You turned, and you did the behind the back flick, like the leg behind the back pass. And I was just it's like, holy shit! Like I had only seen that on TV. I'm like, did he just do that in a game? And for that point on, I was like, Rob Arce is a fucking legend.
I'll pay you later. Thank you.
It was like right.
Did I retire right after?
It was beautiful. You made it look so fluid, and I had never seen playing in Windsor that done out on a field, and that was the first time I'd ever seen it. And I'd only seen it on TV. And I was like, holy crap. So after that moment, Rob, you're on a pedestal.
Oh, God.
The funny thing is, I remember you guys, your dad, you guys had a team. Because I remember we used to go over to Detroit to watch the games, me and my dad, whenever I was playing older. And you guys had a team, I remember, that played like a Boca.
In Ann Arbor?
In Ann Arbor, yeah. Like you guys had like a Boca team or something. And I remember watching you guys play, and you guys were really good. Yes. And I remember thinking like, yeah, they were way better than Tecumseh. Like the style that you guys played and the skill. Level. I don't know whoever
Tecumseh
was there.
Was all brute force.
I know it was you and your brother, I'm sure. I don't know who else was there, but you guys were good. I remember watching like, they're embarrassing them.
So I'll tell you a story. Now I can tell this story. Steve and Mike Vanella. Mike Vanella is one of the guys because it's predominantly Holy Names guys.
Yeah.
And we grabbed the uniforms from Windsor Wheels team that Santiago Centeno had for their first team.
Shout out Windsor Wheels.
Yeah, shout out to the Windsor Wheels. God bless them. And Santiago was amazing. What a guy. And he gave us all these jerseys, and we went in as Boca Juniors, and we won a league in indoor. We beat a couple of really good high school teams. My brother tells me in the States, Ike, that's the name for Eisenhower High School, and a couple other squads. And at least 2 or 3 of the games, Mike Vanella and my brother were absolutely hammered.
During the games.
And I'll say this
Were they
right now
playing better
on the
or
air.
worse than they normally do?
There's no way. Steve maybe. Mike Vanella, there's no way, because Mike was a puker. Mike would drink and he would throw up if you looked at him the wrong way while he's drunk, right? And a loud puker. If you ever had the experience of going have a couple of jars with Mike Vanella, if you have the pleasure of hearing him vomit, it might be one of the most funniest things you'll ever hear in your life. Anyways, moving on from that.
We have another puker on the podcast. I'm not going to name who, but
really?
There's another puker.
Soccer related.
Yeah, soccer related. Oh, really? So that team was predominantly Holy Names guys, and we had a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun to play. It was 2 fields side by side.
Yes.
There was 2.
Yeah, in Ann Arbor.
That's right.
That was the first indoor. That was like high level. Like, wow, you know?
Some good teams.
And I remember Vardar. Those were like the
Total soccer.
It was
Total
like
soccer.
No,
it was
Vardar
called,
was like
no,
Cobra
but
Kai for soccer. They came in.
But the facility,
still
I think
are
it was
the
Total
Cobra
Soccer.
Kai. Oh, for sure.
Total Soccer was the facility.
That was what it's called. Yeah.
Yeah. Because later on, my team got kicked out.
Total Soccer. Oh right, yeah.
We got into a brawl.
God, when my brother hears this, he's gonna laugh because my brother's coaching at Vardar now.
Okay,
and
he's the Cobra Kai.
He's the
Well, Cobra Kai's good now when you watch Netflix.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, now they're the good guys.
Wasn't Vardar actually run by that ref that always
Mike?
So Mike Lupinik.
Yes.
Yeah,
Mike and Morris, who are
I love
Canadian.
Mike.
They were Canadian,
That guy
right?
was
Yeah,
good.
yeah.
He loved us.
Yeah.
When he
They
came
were
in,
from
I love that guy.
Wallaceburg or something, right? There's 2 brothers, wasn't there? Right?
They were in. I think they were from Welland, Ontario,
Oh,
right
even
near,
worse. I remember.
right near Niagara Falls.
Okay.
And those
They
2
were
are
great.
hilarious.
They made it fun, man. I love those guys.
Because they would commentate during a game.
Exactly.
I remember one time I gave it
With
past
us,
to my
only with
brother.
us. I don't know if they did that with the American teams, but with us they would talk.
With
crap.
that, well, I remember one time, maybe it was when we went to Kempsey. I passed the ball to my brother, yelled at him because he did a give and go. With Steve, you did a give and go. You'd give and he would go.
Yeah.
No, but he got the ball, tried something brilliant, of course, and I was sour because I didn't get it. And I must have said something, and Mike Lupinik looked at me and goes, "Why don't you shut up, buddy?" He goes, he did this and did that. Why are you moaning? And I'm like, shut up.
Yeah.
You know, I nothing. But he
I
was
forgot
he was
about
pretty
Mike.
funny.
He was great.
And they were at the Fraser Total Soccer Arena.
Fraser Total Soccer.
My brother's soon-to-be roommate at Michigan State were running the uniform stand. Do you remember the uniform stand?
Did they sell Gatorade as well?
Yes, they
The
sold
uniform
everything.
Gatorade.
The Trivolonis.
We brought American. We would bring over some little American money after the game to get Twinkies. Twinkies at the stop. The Filippo would stop for gas and Gatorade.
We played there too, and then they had like newer facilities.
Yeah.
When I was older, they had a full. I think it was still Total Soccer, but they had a full 11-on-11 too.
Yeah, you see it now.
Yeah, I can imagine now.
Oh,
I remember the days we'd drive over.
Windsor
in a
had
cube.
nothing, and now Windsor has multiple. Yeah.
No,
We'd have to drive over in a cube van. Filippo would rent a cube van every week and just pack us in there, like we were working out in the fields or something, man. And we'd get out of that thing. But it was to this day, like those drives, I'll never forget. They were so much fun.
And I'm not sure how many times we're gonna have the platform to say this. Thank you, Filippo.
Absolutely.
For everything that you did for that team, and not just what you did for the team. Putting up with the characters. I can't go into any stories on the podcast.
We should, but we can't.
But I mean, David Crawford.
Oh Jesus!
Harry,
Chris Mazar.
Chris Mazar, John Reed, and rest in peace, John McCubbin.
Yeah.
What he had to deal with when those guys, and he kept doing it year in, year out. Good for you, Filippo. A big, huge thank you.
All the coaches, man. Filippo, for me, for sure. Like, you as a parent, you appreciate it more. I don't think as a kid you appreciate it at all, but as a parent, to see the commitment the coaches put in. And
this was all volunteer.
All volunteer. It's not like it's different now, but I feel like they sacrifice so much, and I don't think they saw it as a sacrifice. They must have loved doing it, but but the contribution that it made to the next generation and to the sport in general and the physical fitness and health, like you cannot. Looking back now, it's so appreciated. I wish we would appreciate it more at the time,
Listen,
all we can
I
do is
agree.
kind of, appreciate it by what we do now.
Shout out to Dad too. who
Absolutely.
coached as well.
All the
Well,
coaches,
but
man.
I never had the pleasure of being coached by your dad, but I heard he was awesome.
He
I
was
heard
good.
he was a trip too.
Yeah.
So I wish I would have had that opportunity. And
He was a Colombian coach. He coached the Colombian style. Like
Yeah.
Did he? Yeah.
that is and I remember players who he coached saying that he had a very unique the system the way he taught you to pass one.
No
touches, the
wingers.
quick
He was
passes,
no,
no
we
wingers.
don't play wingers. Wingers,
Yeah.
which was a very Colombian,
Yeah.
even to the detriment at times.
Yeah.
It was just like just funnel it through here.
Yeah.
100 passes, all about triangles, so
And the
that was
team,
way
very
it
much
was.
so the team. It was not. There was no real emphasis on stars,
Yeah.
like having a great player. It was
Sure.
very much.
He would bench the stars.
He
Or
would.
not start them, and
Yeah.
they would get pissed off, and then he would bring them on later.
Yeah.
He did a lot of stuff like that. He did it his way, yeah.
That's I love that. And he made my dad's all-time Latino greatest 11 for Windsor
Yeah.
as a goalie.
As a
The
Yeah.
funny thing, we never really. I mean, I don't know, Enver, if you did. I never saw him play,
Once. I
and
remember
he's
seeing play
not
once.
that many stories. But like
Yeah.
thinking back at it, like he was pretty good, but like he was not. He never talked about himself as a player really,
Mhm.
and like he kind of had stopped playing by the time like I was able to play. Like we played a few times, like just in the park, but like I think he had just.
He blew out his shoulder. So
Yeah.
He really seriously injured his shoulder and his ankle. I think he played 3 games with Latinos United, and then got pretty seriously injured. Then played out a bit, and he was like, "I'm not made for playing out."
And I remember too, like I wanted to play goalie, and like I loved playing goalie
Yeah.
in practice and
Is that
stuff.
right?
Yeah.
And he's like, "No, don't do it,
Don't
don't do it."
do
And
it.
honestly,
And
and
he
I was
played
like, "Why?
Sweetbird,
Why?"
and
And
he played
on
Sweetbird.
that was it. But like honestly, I
Would've been
totally
safer
understand.
than
Like
the
it's so
Sweetbird.
much better. It's
Yeah,
so much
yeah.
more fun to play out. Like,
It is.
In goalie, it's
It
just like,
is.
and like you know what? Like sometimes he gives you that. Like he's very like you don't understand it, but like I
Yeah.
totally now understand that. Like yeah, thank you.
So one of the few times I caught my dad shedding some tears was in a 1990 World Cup. We're watching, and now I'm really dating ourselves, West Germany. We're watching West Germany play Colombia. And maybe because we were just a bit ignorant to the situation, we didn't know at that time at 1990 how good Colombia was, because Argentina had qualified because they were the champions. Back then, the champions got a free ticket into the next tournament, and we didn't know how good they were. And I still remember the 87th minute. It's 1-0 Germany. Rudy Voller scored an amazing goal for Germany earlier on. And my dad, he does this, I don't know if this is a Latino thing. I'm not sure if this is just a Julio thing. He turns up the volume. There's 5 minutes left. He turns up the volume because he wants everybody's attention in the house grabbed. He wants to ring it in. So it's the 87th minute. And, my mom is loving everything that Valderrama is doing. She loves Valderrama. And my dad's going, it's coming. And I could have swore he turned into a yellow, blue, and red Colombian. And I don't know if it was just something this United Latino or just something America Unida. I don't know what it was.
Yeah.
But his face is getting red. And he's, come on. We can do it. The pronouns changed.
Yeah.
When the pronouns changed, I'm looking at him. And I'm looking at the TV. I'm thinking, does this give me liberty or carte blanche to really understand, to celebrate the fact that I'm Latino and I'm throwing in for my brothers? And I'm watching the TV, and I remember the sequence. Alvarez, Valderrama, Cabrera, back to Alvarez, Valderrama. He releases Rincon, and the greatest nutmeg I've ever seen.
Yes.
Freddy Rincon.
Yeah.
And
Legend.
it goes through the legs, and there is bedlam in my house.
I remember shit flying off the stands. Yeah.
And there's bedlam, and my dad is hugging me. He's hugging my mom. We embrace in one of the most beautiful soccer-related, Latin-related, I guess you could say, an apex of joy. And, my brother and I were just jumping around. And when the game was done, a tie was great for Colombia. But seeing as that their team's potential anyway, it could have been even more.
Yeah.
But I just thought, I had a moment of awakening at that point. And just seeing my dad's reaction, hearing the commentators on Univision, Norberto Longo and Andres Cantor, and they couldn't stop yelling. And I remember my dad saying, "Oh my God, Pedro must be going nuts. He must be going crazy." And maybe for an hour, because back then there's no texting, there's just a landline. He was calling you guys probably to get together, maybe something. And for me, that was my biggest awakening growing up Latino. Apart from the El Salvadorians that we met growing up, and the Colombians and anybody else my dad harangued into the Latino squad in Windsor back in the day, that's what it was like for us, cheering them on. Unless Argentina was playing against them.
Exactly.
But it was cheering them on.
I think that World Cup they did play together, didn't they?
No, they
was the next one.
No,
that
no,
was
no.
Higuita against Cameroon.
Don't bring
No,
that
no,
up.
no,
You
not
get
that one. I didn't want to-
I
I
blocked
want
that out.
Asprilla's 4 goals against
That didn't
Oh, yeah.
happen.
That didn't
We're going to
happen.
jump to the 98 World Cup. No, listen,
The
I'll go
93,
into
that's
that.
93.
Listen, in 94, we're playing in a tournament in Cincinnati.
It's funny, we went from United Latinos.
No, I still, but here's the one thing that Argentina, we were spoiled. We had 86, made the finals in 90, won the Copa America in 91, won the Copa America in 93. As usual, Argentinians being, arrogant and vain about our chances. One of the reasons why the rest of Latin America hates our guts. And
We were so united 5 minutes ago.
well, no, yeah, but I'm painting. I want to paint this
No,
scenario
for
because,
sure.
I mean, let's be honest, the rest of Latin America loves it when Argentina gets stuffed. And they like it for reasons because the country, if you go to Buenos Aires, they have a bad tag of being racist and being very elitist.
Yeah.
And that's not, and for us, the Jazzes and ourselves being from provincial territories like Mendoza and San Juan, it's not like that.
For sure.
In Buenos Aires, the Porteños can be like that. And sure, they make a great target.
Yeah.
So, but leading up to that game, because I knew Argentina needed a point to qualify. And I just thought, this is great. We're going to go see them in the U.S. And we got home and we saw the scoreline. I didn't know. I thought I was living in a different universe. And then
We were pretty surprised as well, I think.
Yeah.
But then we saw the highlights.
Yeah.
And the worst thing is this. When you have somebody in your house that appreciates the game regardless of colors, which is my mom, and then you have somebody who is not like that, like my dad, and underneath his breath, there's Valencia, there's Esprilla, there's Esprilla again, then there's this, and my dad's going, hijo de puta, no, por favor. And it was just this sullen attitude. And after the fifth, and these are highlights, my mom always goes, and she goes, but beautiful goals. And we're like, what? How dare you?
Well, Rob,
sanctimonious.
if you want to see the whole game, I think we still have it on tape.
No, listen.
VHS.
Here's the thing, though. The next day, we were almost called as a family, or at least I was, in a meeting
Right.
to watch on Telefe, which is Argentina's biggest network. They had 4 of Argentina's biggest idols, and I can't believe this happened. San Filippo, Loco Gatti, the goalie for the '78 World Cup, and some other guy, invited Goycochea, the goalie who they scored 5 goals past, who was a legend leading up to this point. You know what I mean? Runners up, 2 Copa Americas is not bad.
Yeah.
They invite him onto this talk show, and these 4 guys roast him.
Oh, jeez.
Almost on behalf of the nation. Right?
Some catharsis to get stuff on the target.
And it's on YouTube.
Yeah.
And then the coach finds out this is happening. He walks in on the interview, says, "Get your stuff. Get out of here.
Wow.
Don't talk to these idiots."
Good.
National
Good,
TV.
yeah.
Good for him.
So my dad is still trying to piece together the night before, right? And he goes, I don't know. I don't know how to feel. And think, do you congratulate Colombia on possibly one of the greatest ever performances of
Their careers.
counting, attacking football, and displaying just how stratospheric they are? I mean, Rincon, Valderrama, Valencia. Oh my God, what a team they had.
Yeah.
And then you think, what do you do? Or do you lament? And then you hear, oh, we got drawn against Australia. Well, let's get, it was the repechaje. It was
remember
the
that.
game against Oceania to qualify.
Yeah.
And then I remember that's all we had to think about
Right.
leading up to it, because that was biblical.
Couldn't miss a World Cup. That'd be just like
Well,
yeah.
it wasn't just that. I've never seen Argentina have an ass kicking that
Yeah.
bad.
Because Argentina and Brazil just for so long in South America were just head and shoulders for so many years. I feel like at that point, Colombia was still just up and coming, right? Like,
Yeah.
I mean, there was Uruguay right before, but
Mhm.
Argentina and Brazil, I feel like if I mean, Rob, if I'm wrong, but like they were just head and shoulders above, right?
They were, but I think it was down to money not being sunk into other programs. Because in our World Cup, you also had Bolivia in their qualifying. You had Echeverri and Milton Melgar. They were phenomenal.
Yeah.
You had Chile on a 4-year ban because of the fireworks episode, who also had, I remember the guy faked getting hit with a firework and had the fake blood against Brazil.
Okay, yeah, I didn't remember that.
Rojas, the goalie, and they were banned for a while. What I was most proud of Colombia to doing that day, even at our expense, was announcing their arrival
Yeah,
to this world stage,
Yeah.
and saying, "Guess what? There's another player
yeah,
out of South America, and this is what we just did."
and they did it with style. It was
it's
impressive.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
It was unbelievable. But yeah, going from 1990 to feeling so united and cheering them on to 94 to abject misery.
It's
Oh.
funny though how
Whole
Latinos,
story.
right? Like the second you have that sense of we're
Misery for
Latin
both of
America,
us in '94.
but then all the old prejudices come in, right? All the old
Yeah.
internal divisions, and it's a good, it's a kind of a good example of like I guess you could say the way Latin Americans are dealt with. We would always unite to fight the Americans or
Yeah.
the Spanish.
Yeah, that's
But
right.
the internal divisions were so strong, even to the time of Bolivar. The internal divisions were always so strong that you couldn't keep it together.
And
No.
I actually saw a final, Argentina in a final in person in '97 at the
in
Olympics.
in Atlanta.
Oh,
Yeah.
in Atlanta?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Where-
I
where
actually
Nigeria scored the offside
when
goal?
I
Where's the
yeah
gets helped out?
time for another drink. Yeah.
I'm kidding.
I was there. I actually was at that game and I wore my Colombia jersey.
You did, eh?
Yeah, yeah.
And,
And
that
it was a
like you were
crazy.
cheering for Argentina.
For Nigeria.
Yeah. I mean, I had to represent, right?
Yeah, did
So
you?
yeah,
I was
yeah.
gonna say
So
Nigeria's
I
right.
got I went to the Olympics. I got lucky for there was like a the Windsor teacher that took people to the Olympics from Kennedy. Like he was a teacher from Kennedy, and I got lucky and got chosen. I don't know how. And we got to go to the Olympics. It was an amazing experience. And I had tickets to these games, and the final was on. I was like, oh, I want to go to the soccer final. So I had to give up I missed the 4x1 final of Donovan Bailey to go to the soccer final because I was like, no, I want to see the soccer final. And so I went.
There,
It was
that just shows your allegiance right there.
Yeah.
It's like Donovan
because you
Bailey.
had to go. You had to go. It was outside of Atlanta,
Right.
so you had to take a bus. It was to it was another city. It was like the college town, so I had to take a bus. So I was like, no, I want to go. It's great. I want to see Argentina play. I wore my Colombia jersey, and it was an amazing game. I mean, good for Nigeria, but yeah, it was tough on the Argentinians.
Yeah, that was phenomenal.
But it was an amazing. Like it was amazing. Like the atmosphere was
But it's
great.
funny though that
Yeah.
going with the Colombia jersey actually for that context was supporting Argentina.
Yeah, it
I
is,
feel like
really,
In my
yeah.
mind, that's would be the thing.
Yeah, you're
That's
supporting
right.
Because it's
Latinos.
Latin America.
But I mean, you can't but also you have to feel good for Nigeria, right? Like
Absolutely.
this African
Absolutely.
country,
It's
but
not one against
I think
everyone, it's
whoever won it was great, right? Yeah.
Yeah,
I
it
guess,
was.
yeah.
You look at the players on both teams. It was Zanetti, Crespo, Simeone,
Yep.
Chamot.
They had a good team.
It was Argentina was stacked in Nigeria.
They had Kanu.
Amukachi,
Yeah.
Amunike.
Yeah.
I think
Kanu
scored
was
the
like,
winner.
What, 18, 16?
Oh, he
Yeah.
must have been.
Yeah.
16, 17?
Yeah.
at the time?
And it was a Sunday Elise. Like
Yeah.
it was. That was their golden generation.
Yeah.
The Golden Eagles.
And Argentina played Nigeria again in '94, or previously in '94, and Nigeria, I want to remember, gave them the game. I still remember a goal of the one that guy scored. Like I can't remember the score, but
Canigia. We won 2-1. I think.
was it 2-1? Yeah, but I
World
remember
Cup.
seeing that was when some of the African teams
They
were
were
really kind of, and
emerging.
Nigeria was really emerging.
Yeah.
Cameroon, unfortunately, at the expense of Colombia previously,
Right.
but
Yeah. And
90.
Argentina.
Yeah,
They beat
and
Argentina.
Argentina,
The opening game.
yeah. So I mean, I think that's another. I think Latinos should be able to
Rajamila.
should be able to, identify with Africa and the up and coming soccer that they play there.
I think so.
Yeah.
I think we're tremendous supporters of the underdog.
Yeah,
of being
exactly.
Latino. Like it's
part of the identity.
It is.
And-
I think it is.
And
Very
I would
much
say,
so.
I think that's why within South America, why Argentina maybe gets some flack is because they're so confident, right? Like they come off so confident and on average that that within South America, other South Americans don't view them as the underdog. They view them as the soccer power. And they're
Brazil
so
also. I think
confident.
Brazil
Brazil as well. Yeah.
I think it could be that. I mean, sadly, I don't know about both of you. I'm sure you both do it because you're both so educated. But the more proud of your identity, of your ethnicity, the more you go into it even further. After hearing the Argentine national anthem, I always make sure I look at the history books to bring me right back down to where I should be.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because I'm feeling at the height to be proud of where my roots are. All it takes for me to open up a book to realize just how sinister we were. And it brings me back to, I guess, an earlier point of being united, growing up as a Latino in Canada. When I first read about this guy, Presidente Sarmiento, he's known across the world as the Lector of the Americas. I don't know if you guys ever heard this guy. There's a statue of him outside of Brown University and outside University of Michigan's library. He was involved in a process that was called El Blanqueamiento de Argentina, so the whiteification of Argentina, where he chose to send, at that time, 18% of Argentina's Argentine population to the front lines of the war against Paraguay. And he also, because back then, and this is the early 1800s, mid 1800s, I'm sorry, he decided that the yellow fever outbreak in South America was huge. So any of the non-white populations, he chose to send them into camps. And so essentially, what he thought was eradicating Argentina's identity issue. He wanted the whiteification of Argentina. But keep in mind, there's a statue of this guy outside of these universities because he made it mandatory for every farm kid, every kid living in the rural areas, that they had to go to school. Check mark for him. But what people didn't know about him was this awful, awful things. Yeah. The speeches of his addresses to the Argentinian government about the indigenous community, about the gauchos, who were well-known mestizos, as Canadians would refer to them as Métis, would be appalling. Yeah. So when I know there's things like that are out there, and I know, in Canada, we are a mosaic society, I find it therapeutic for me to reach out to other Latinos, regardless of where they're from. I don't give a shit where they're from. But the common denominator being Spanish or being grown up in that kind of environment, to let them know how much I appreciate them. And it's not just my way of absolving Argentina for its sins or from where you're from or whatever. It's a way of making sure that other people from other countries know that it takes cream to rise to the top, but it also takes a special percentage to bring you down to the bottom. And that most people are good people, regardless of where they're from. And I carry that over me like this awful cloud. When you're talking about Argentina to other Latinos, I always think that that's the first thing that they think you see. Right. Much like a German speaking to anybody in Europe. Yeah. You always have that thing over you, But
I think, to be fair, I don't think our generation has that, but I think our parents' generation that was part of the part of the cultural kind of identity.
Sure. Okay, so going back into all that, where am I? My shitty notes here. Okay, so I want to touch upon this point really quick. When your dad was coaching you, did he instill the Machiavellian traits associated with many Latin attributes of playing? And when I say Machiavellian, my brother had a mouth on him when he played. Not all the time, just when he would start getting hit. it came out. And a lot of the times when he would get hit, the ref wouldn't see it. So in order for the referee to see it, he'd have to fall a little bit easier. For me, that's not diving. You're embellishing the foul. See, I'm already thinking in the gray. I'm thinking like a Machiavellian.
Right there, yeah.
But so normally a European or a Brit would say, no, fuck that. Just keep on running and, you know, whatever.
Stiff upper lip.
Stiff upper lip, son.
Yeah.
But would you guys embrace it? Did he impart those things onto you as a player, as an athlete?
Yes.
Did he?
Yes. I mean, it's probably different for you because
when I was in Windsor Soccer Club, I
but
don't
you
remember.
But you played a different. You're a little bit younger. Well, no, because he when he first put it in me, it was young. But I played defense, so it's different, right? Probably as a midfielder, like. But I'd still remember, like, whatever you get, if you can get away with, it's part of the game. Like, not in the sense of like you hurt anyone, but like
or you're cheating.
Yeah, like right, like I still remember like a story from a good friend of mine that I was like 12, and he was like a year older, and we were playing, and I was playing defense, and he was just like, my friend Vikas, like way bigger than me. He was really good, and he tells the story still. He's like, yeah, Paul was like pulling my shirt, was doing all this stuff that I had never seen at that age. And that was like Dad had, you know, he told me like you can pull shirts, you can do that. Like if you can do that, that's part of the game, right? And like also too, like he's like, you know, if somebody's like hitting you or whatever, you just miss the ball, you know, and like that's the justice of it. Yeah, not injure him, but like, you know, I mean, like that's part of it. Yeah,
sure. All right,
so he definitely and me, and actually I have a story with your brother.
Oh shit.
That I remember, and like the first high school game I think I ever played, I was in grade 10. And I was playing sweeper, and we played an exhibition game against Holy Names. It was my first game, and I remember going in and like making like just about to make like a super clean tackle, and your brother just like saw it coming and just dived, and didn't I didn't touch him at all, and he just like he saw it in cadence, he knew that the tackle was coming and went down, and I was just like. I was good, you know. I had to like.
You just said something.
I was like, I mean, I was pissed, right? Because I was like, "What the hell?" You know what I mean? Like I was young, and it was just,
sure.
You know what I mean? Like I was trying to win a starting spot,
Of course.
but I had to like respect it because you know what I mean. Like growing up and like how the game was taught from to me, that was like, yeah, if you can do it, you get away with it. And like as a defender, you know, I mean, you get pissed off by it, but like, you know, if I had my chance back then, I would, you know, I'd pull shirts.
Yeah, so when I was. My dad coached me. I don't remember anything ever being taught that. I remember with Filippo playing soccer was it was a physical game. Like Tecumseh was just all brute. I mean, we were good players as in discipline, good fitness, but we were just it was a lot of
freight
brute
train.
force. Yeah,
it was
it started from
fast.
Crawford at sweeper and moved up, but it was a freight train. And I remember that we went to Italy. We played a tour in Italy, and best experience ever. And first game I get on, I'm playing left mid. And this Italian guy receives the ball. I come up behind him, and I just kind of checked him, right? Like, letting him know I'm there. Dives like I shot him. I get a yellow card. I come all the way to Italy to play. It's a tournament. I get a yellow card.
Dirty
Canadians.
Canadians.
It was even a red card. I think it was a red card. It was a red card.
Really?
So I was out for 2 games. So, like, that was a turning point for me, as in, after that, I was like, just because of that personal experience,
Sure.
I just can't, like, I see diving. I just can't stand because it happened to me, right?
Sure.
Like that. Like I've come all this way. And I remember the crowd laughed. I got so mad. I took a water bottle, I whipped it at the wall. The crowd's laughing at me.
No.
So it made me realize that in Italy, and a lot of other places, this is considered part of the game.
Sure.
And I had just never really experienced it to that extent, being a victim of it. But we were never, with Tecumseh, we were just like, play physical, be tough. They were all hockey players.
You had all hockey players.
We had
that's
all
why.
hockey
It was
players.
all
So that
hockey players,
Filippo probably had to adapt the game to a hockey framework. But it was all hockey players.
I mean, I definitely got Dad definitely would tell me do this, do that. And even like you go up for head balls and you had long hair and your arm is here. You just like come through and you hit it. And like in Canada, that's dirty. And in England, they view you as the scum of the earth.
That's
Yeah.
That's exactly. That's why I find such a major culture shock.
Yeah.
Yet, we called him Uncle Stuart, but it was my nana. Got remarried years after my grandfather passed away. We called him Uncle Stuart, and he was teaching me how to defend off of a corner kick against players that were bigger than us. Because Filippo, he came to see us play against playing for Tecumseh, and Filippo always put us in a league were playing up, and he was watching us playing against Polonia. They're, big boys.
Yeah.
And he was saying to me, son, we've got a problem. I said, well, what's the problem? You can't defend on a corner kick. And I said, well, I'm just jumping. I can't out-jump them. He goes, you're thinking about this all wrong. And I said, what? He goes, the moment the ball's in the air, as soon as you know where it's about to drop, step on a guy's shoe off of his leading foot, and he can't jump. Can you jump? And he did it to me. I was going to cry. It hurt so bad. I couldn't jump.
Yeah.
I couldn't jump. Yeah. And I'm like, this is hilarious and phenomenal advice. I can't do it. I couldn't do it as a person. I would have had to been really mad to do it. It wasn't until later on somebody told me the right way of doing it. But this is coming from a Brit, right? And he knew that we were getting beat in the air for fun on Tecumseh. And he goes, you have to take this into consideration. He goes, if you're going to let them get the better of you, they're always going to get the better of you.
But that's accepted. So like that's acceptable in British soccer culture because like when you're in the box, you're going up for a head ball, and it's like one-on-one where you're basically like you're doing something and they're going to call you for a foul.
Yeah.
That's part of the game that's acceptable. But if you dive and you fake it,
forget it.
That's criminal in Canada,
right.
in the United States, and in England and Scotland. I'm sure too. Like that's the crime.
Which
is to me is ridiculous.
Oh my God,
it's ridiculous.
My brother.
It's just cultural. It's just cultural. I think.
Absolutely.
But I guess VAR, hopefully.
Oh, it's
like
changing
I really
now.
appreciate that.
Yeah.
That there's a disincentive now, right?
Yes.
So if it's glaring and it's flagrant and you weren't going to get hit anyway.
Yeah.
There's a check on that. I think that's one of the things I really like that soccer's modernizing is putting that in place. Seeing it in the last World Cup.
I think it's good. I mean, I think it's like, listen, culturally, I think it's like you do what you can. That's acceptable. And
that's every sport, I think.
Like if it's a foul, if it's a penalty, then that should be called, right? Yeah. So like if the VR helps that, then I think it's all the best for the game. Right.
Yeah. No, absolutely. It's going to evolve. That's for sure.
Yeah.
Okay. A little acid test for you guys. You ready? See how Colombian we are. Okay. So really quickly, I'm going to ask you a series of questions. Just respond as quickly as you can. No, you're not. No, you're not.
We're group answers.
You're going to send this. You're going to send this link to all your Colombian family afterwards, and they're going to disown us. They're going to get
They're Canadians.
That's right.
Again,
Canadians. What do they know? Okay, ready? Quick question. Favorite Colombian politician? Go.
Favorite Colombian politician? If I say it, I might get in trouble with the authorities.
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know what we could say.
Leave it at that, because this is the only time on this show that's ever going to be said. I might get in trouble with the authorities.
Yeah, I don't know.
I love it.
I don't know.
Yep. All right, favorite Colombian soccer team?
Like which year?
No.
Club.
I don't follow.
Cucuta?
I have to say Cucuta.
They played Boca when you're in a final.
Yeah, we have to say Cucuta just for
you have to.
For my
there's
dad.
a lot of there's a lot of Colombians playing in the Italian league.
But in Colombia it's different.
Portuguese league too, I think, right?
Yeah.
Well, there's a bunch of leagues. Enver is not a big club.
No. That's okay. Favorite
club.
Colombian dessert?
Arequipe.
Yeah, I would say arequipe. Oh yeah.
Favorite Colombian entree?
Oh, it's got to be ajiaco bogoteño.
What's that?
Oh, the soup.
Oh,
Colombian
okay.
soup. Oh, it's
Yeah.
It's the biggest comfort food you could ever have. You got to try it.
I would say the paisa. What is it with the?
Paisa.
Yeah, banda paisa. Banda paisa, which is
deep fried everything.
Which is like deep fried pork rind, beans, rice with an egg, and like
I think the rice is deep fried.
You have to have the egg, right? You have to have the egg.
And in Colombia, you can get it for like $6 in Medellin, and it's so good.
Of course you can.
And at the airport, it's just like the funny thing is, you go to like the malls and the airports, which is like their like fast food is actually amazing, like home cooked Colombian food for like really cheap. And
really,
it's amazing. Yeah.
Arepas or deep fried empanadas?
Arepas. Yeah.
All day long, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. With coffee in the morning.
Damn it!
With like a pound of sugar in the coffee.
Oh, my next question was what time of the day does a Colombian drink coffee?
Oh yeah, there's no.
Every time up until I cut it off at 7.
7 at night?
6 at the latest.
Oh
my dad,
God.
like I guess is typical Colombian is like, any problem you have, coffee will solve it. You have high blood pressure, coffee. Low blood pressure, take coffee. Headache, take coffee. Stomachache, take coffee. Can't sleep, take coffee.
Mhm.
Coffee for him is a medicinal.
From a medical background, I disagree with a lot of
Absolutely.
that, but a lot of it is actually
A spiritual background.
For headache, actually, it's good
Definitely.
because it's a.
I'll take it. If I'm getting a migraine, I take an aspirin.
No, you can actually
Coffee.
take like
And coffee.
caffeine because like the caffeine,
Caffeine does
right?
it
Yeah,
itself.
caffeine's good for headaches, especially for migraines.
Hear that, Dad?
Yeah.
Medical.
And well, he also says that coffee puts him to sleep sometimes, so he'll have coffee at like 9 p.m.
But
Which
in
I'm
the
like,
every morning.
that's crazy. No.
Every morning, this is the Villamizar household. 6:30 in the morning. Pedro, mixing the sugar in the
Is that
coffee.
6:30,
really?
sometimes 5.
Yeah.
He wakes up
Every
very early.
God.
It
Yeah.
was like a ritual.
Yeah.
It's like waking everybody up by the coffee.
Yeah.
Coffee became the bell.
Is that
Yeah,
right?
there's always coffee, always fresh coffee every day. And I was living a couple years ago in the basement for a little while when I was between, moving back, and there was always coffee. Paul, you want coffee? All right, come on.
Is
Yeah,
that right there?
yeah, every morning. Yeah.
First, what was the first alcohol was introduced to you by a Colombian?
Aguardiente that I took from my parents that I drank,
The
right?
cabinet?
Unintentionally. But actually, they let us try alcohol when I was like young. They're like, yeah,
Is
you
that
want to try it? Go ahead. Yeah, they were very like, yeah, go ahead. And
Yeah.
we're like, no, didn't really
I
like
remember
it.
my cousin in Colombia having a submarine, so it was a beer with aguardiente and a shot glass dropped in.
Was that
I think
right?
upside down or right side up, I can't remember. Delicious.
Is that right?
Yeah. But the other one's
I have to try
refajo.
Refajo, yeah.
Colombian pop, colombiana,
that.
mixed with aguardiente and a little bit of ponimalta, which is a malt
Yeah.
pop. Oh, glorious.
Really?
Oh,
Yeah, it's very good.
And then the best Colombian drink that there is, hot chocolate with cheese.
Chocolate.
With cheese?
With cheese. If you
Please
have
explain
never
this to the
tried
listeners, Enver.
Hot chocolate with cheese
Uh-huh.
sounds disgusting. It's the most glorious thing ever. You get a bland cheese, something that will melt and take on flavor
Go white
like a
cheese,
mozzarella.
mozzarella. Yeah.
But it's got to be good hot chocolate. So Colombian hot chocolate, you can get it at in Windsor. You can get it at ethnic roaster called, I can't remember the name, Crawford there. Not International Market, not World Market. Anyway, it's Colombian
I know
chocolate.
exactly what you're talking
You put
about.
cheese in with milk and the hot chocolate. It is glorious.
Colombian
Really?
food is amazing.
Oh.
It is amazing.
Cheese and hot chocolate. If some Canadian place opens up and serves cheese with hot chocolate, they will capture an each
Cheese
market.
and
You
hot
can- it's
chocolate.
glorious.
I have to try
You
that.
got
now.
it. It's unbelievable. So good.
Okay, so we're gonna go next. Let's transition into the theme. And I'll try to keep the questions brief. I know both things that you have to do, and we've talked already for
No
ages.
worries. Great.
All right, so we were talking earlier on as the world started opening up to me on an educational level, asking my mom questions about this, about that, politics, religion, you name it. Further exploring as to why we became Celtic fans, it became apparent that in Europe, the life of a fan or your identity is kind of chosen for you depending on how you're born, to whom you're born, and what your parents' ideals are. So being that my mother's family were mixed, meaning Scottish and Irish in Glasgow, and Catholic, obviously being a Celtic fan was destined for everybody in the family. And that meant certain connotations politically, not just religiously. Politically, it meant that you supported, dare I say it, not the terrorist acts of the IRA by any means. Nobody wants to see violence or anything like that. But they were sympathetic to the Catholic struggles within Northern Ireland, in Belfast in particular, during the struggles and things like that. We got to know both sides because in the media it covered one side, right? But you yourself in turn and internally knew exactly what was being said on the other side of the debate. It was strange. And we, as kids, never really voiced that. The last thing you want to say in the media is like, well, look at the other side here. It wasn't a debate like one man's terrorist is another man's hero. But it was more or less there's history behind that. Don't be so quick to judge. So that is an extreme scenario with my personal experience. And this is just me as a young guy trying to find outlets on how do I identify, right? Why is this happening? Why am I that? Why am I this? So more importantly, sport took over my love of politics within the game. I could appreciate whenever Rangers would score an amazing goal. I could appreciate amazing Rangers players. I was never blinded by sectarian vile or anything like that. But I knew the history. Do you think, both of you think, that in this day and age, 2021, everything that the world has gone through up until now, do you think that form of of identity politics is so prevalent, but it's going to keep being that extreme? Do you think it's going to get worse, or do you think this is just part of being, it's just part of living in Europe or South America or being involved in a political spectrum? What do you think, Enver?
I mean,
I guess my opinion would be that I think we live in a very different world than our parents lived in.
Mm-hmm.
Things were pretty set between you had an easy idea of, you're left wing, you're right wing, you're pro-Soviet Union, you're pro-US, you're pro-capitalist, you're
Mm-hmm.
pro-socialist. So that was kind of, you could orient your identity in relation to another perspective.
Mm-hmm.
To a certain extent, that's easy because it's kind of given to you that, okay, you're born this is your identity, you're against these ones. I think today's world is globalized. It's a fact. So the whole idea of national identities, ethnic identities, we're in the transition period when all those old national liberation struggles and things that were taking place in the 60s, post-Second World, the fall of the Second World War,
Mm-hmm.
it's different now. This world is completely mixed. And it's mixing more and more and more. And it's beautiful in a sense. And what comes along with that is, how do you create a new world where identity is not based on racial lines, not based on ethnic lines,
Right.
something new. And so I think we're kind of seeing the growing pains of that. That the world it seems very chaotic, it seems very divided. Obviously it is, but it's because all the framework that our parents, and to a certain extent, you and I and Paul grew up with, of that left-right world, is gone. But all the thinking is still from that period of left versus right, this
Sure.
versus that. So I think there's a need to really re-envision what identity means for the 21st century, not based on kind of the framework of that 19th and 20th century. And I think that's, so I guess to get to the heart of your question, whether it's going to get worse or not, I think it's going to get worse, but it's the coming into being of a new identity of what is this humanity going to look like? That we grew up like in Windsor playing soccer. Tecumseh, for example, everybody's. I mean, most of the kids were born in Canada, some were not, but from all over.
Yeah.
It was never an issue.
Mm-hmm.
Our parents had a different experience, different upbringing, right? They went through the civil wars, the dirty wars of the U.S. and Latin America, so they had that framework, and it's embedded in them.
Mm-hmm.
Our framework as a younger generation, I think, is very different. We're part of one humanity, which those lines are blurred. People have, we're all different ethnicities are marrying, and cultures and groups, and Canada's a really good example of that.
Sure.
But we have to give rise to a new identity. It's not just going to come. We're not just going to be handed it like, what does it mean to be Canadian? It's being defined now. So to say it's, pro-Commonwealth, pro-Queen, pro-soldiers versus pro-Indigenous, left, something, that doesn't fit.
Right.
We have to give rise to something new. So I think it's going to get worse before it gets better, but it's because the Cold War is done,
Mm-hmm.
and the world is starting to kind of come to terms with the fact that what does this new world look like?
Right. Interesting take.
Yeah. I think when you mix in sport and soccer and clubs, I think it's really complicated, because on one hand, right, like in many countries and many leagues, like it's these are clubs that are owned by individuals, right? These are profit centers. These are businesses. So, that's not like that everywhere, and a lot of the clubs, like Boca Juniors, is not, right? Like they're owned by the fans.
Yeah.
Right.
All association in Argentina.
Exactly. All of Germany 50+1. So like you can't, the fans have to have a vote.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a fan of Barcelona. Barcelona is owned by the socios.
Mm-hmm.
But like, do they work like a club that is like they talk about their ideals, but like Does that come into play? I don't necessarily think so. I mean, they work like any other profit center trying to generate profit.
Mm-hmm.
I think that creates a really weird dynamic for fans, because I think a lot of the clubs, reflect where, the identity of where they're based, right? So like, in Glasgow, you have Rangers and you have Celtic, just like in Rome, you have Lazio and you have Roma, and you have the different kind of subsets of society. And then you also have that, like, a lot of these clubs, like specifically in England, like they just care about making money, and the fans are the consumer, right? So like, you're basically like, a lot of the fans have a club view of like of banding together, of loyalty to the club, but really the club is just facilitating whatever they can to make money. And in some other places it's very different. But I think when you talk about identity politics and all that stuff, and how that meshes with soccer and mainly like European, South American, and that are a big part of people's identity, I think it's really messy, and I think it's really complicated. Yeah. And I'm not sure exactly where I stand on it, but I think that's going to keep happening. And you're going to see, just like how, a lot of society is stratified along those lines, and there's multiple reasons why. I think that shows up in sport, and it shows up in fans, and it's just a reason for, this fan and that fan of different clubs to like align where they align. And in some cases, they're just the consumer. That is basically like, the club will basically sell whatever. They'll sell their ideals to you if it makes them money. That's not for everything, but that's like I mean, England is different. I have a different view of England, because England is like completely, all about money in the clubs, and a lot of other clubs in South America and other places. Like, I think it's very good, but I don't know where it's going to fall. And I do think it's going to keep happening. But there's also like a lot of dangerous nationalism in some of these other countries, right? That the soccer club is like or the country as well, like is like the outlet for that, right? And I think that can be good and it can be bad, right?
But I think an important point, I think, is that this is some of these divisions are fomented and created, right? That one team stands for this, one team stands for that, to sell, right? Because you can then get your fans to be more adherent to loyal to your club and things. And I think that those, to a certain extent, are false.
Somebody, it's marketing.
It's marketing. It's falsely pushed to create the impression that the people are divided. Trust in your club, or trust in something
Division
else.
sells. Right. Division sells.
That's so that's where I was wondering, and I don't know why, because I'm a general worrywart. When I look at a club like Chelsea, Chelsea's known for being loyalist, right wing, and I'm not saying it's a bad thing if you're on the right on the political spectrum. What I did find, though, was what was interesting. The English Defence League is a political party in Britain, predominantly in England, of course. They draw a lot of support from hardcore right-wing ultras. Let's just call them ultras. And I know they don't identify with that in England, but let's just call them that. Just like the Lazio fans. The ultras from Lazio are hardcore right-wing fascistas, right? I mean, we all know why. Yeah. So if the EDL is hoping that the droves of Chelsea fans that think that way are going to come out and vote for whatever particular riding in London, and I think to myself, wait a second, when I watch a Chelsea game and I look at the fans, I see diversity. Yep. I don't see all white faces. Yep. So why is this a point of topic in conversation? Why does a political group in the 2020s, how are they still relying on a certain, maybe it's a large percentage of a fan group, more than what I think, more than what people gather. How are we still allowing that kind of stuff to continue? Is this part of the ebb and flow of politics? Is it part of, like Enver said, letting it take 2 steps back before we move forward? Is this part of it becoming worse before we move in? And then I look at Ajax, and I forget who their big rival is. I want to say Feyenoord. So Feyenoord. Ajax was founded in a predominantly Jewish area of Amsterdam, right? And when they play away, and the Ajax team enters onto the field, and I'm hoping it's stopped by now, but if I Google this, it probably hasn't stopped. When the Ajax team comes onto the pitch, the supporters hiss to make noises akin to the sound of the gas chambers.
The opposing team.
The opposing fans. Now, I'm not saying by any means the majority of the fans feel that way. Probably the majority of the other fans are disgusted by it.
Yeah.
But it's that small faction that's in there. And you can guarantee it that if there is a political party that is uber Dutch and they have that slogan, Holland, or let's keep Holland for the Dutch, or, you know what I'm getting at here.
Holland great again.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. That they're
They'll
going to
exploit
be
it.
back. They're going to exploit it.
Yep.
So at what point is this something that FIFA, is this something that UEFA have to take harder stances against? Because even go back to the Euros. I see England taking a stance on the center circle for Black Lives Matter or equality for all. And yet you see certain home countries booing those actions. What has to be done? Or, because it's sport, does anything have to be done? Are they showing their true colors? Or, I won't name the country because I'm going to get blasted with emails afterwards. Oh, we're not racist. I go back to a country that boos somebody taking a knee at the center circle. And then they have an immigrant from Africa supporting a national team. Maybe that they're not born in that particular country, but that kid is supporting their hero.
Yeah.
How do they feel at that point? Is this a thing about being exclusionary versus segregation? What is this? Does UEFA have an opportunity? Does FIFA have an opportunity to go in and really hammer these associations? Or, I have two educated people in front of me. Do you let it go? Is this just part of the ebb and flow of I guess you could say our global political reflection?
I mean, I think this is a debate, I think, beyond soccer, because the issues of what's freedom of speech, what are the limits on freedom of speech, so it's a very, very, it's not just facing UEFA and soccer, it's facing political parties, it's facing political institutions as racism really emerges more openly than it has in the past. So to me, the issue is, on one hand, people need venues to express their opinions. Mm-hmm. It's really important. And at the same time, the political systems we have now incentivize dividing people, because your only goal is to win.
Sure.
It's not to involve people in discourse, to have discussion, to have politics, where people actually come up with solutions to problems. It's just to win, right? First past the post in Canada, that's the actual structure of the system. As long as you get the most seats, you win. Right. There's no incentivization to have the people involved in political discussion. So to a certain extent, that division of people along racial lines, ethnic lines, progressive versus non-progressive, it's what the political parties use to win. So as much as, you want to be on the right side, by right I mean like non-racist,
right.
There's also this pressure to say, well, white people are racist, non-white people are not. And it just categorizes people, not as humans, but along these lines from the 60s, 70s, even before, left, right, white, not white. So I think that the major issue we're facing is that we need political systems where everybody, regardless of their background, can participate in deciding things. Mm-hmm. Not having this thing where political parties, all they do is just try to divide everybody to win, because that's what they're good at. That's their strategies. And I think soccer clubs become mixed up in that because they're a huge part of the life in places other than Canada and the US. And so then political leaders use them to win at all costs, because that's the system.
Sure.
The system is do whatever you can to win. Get a marketing firm, get a high class, candidate who's famous. And then if you can stoke this position in the society and make it look like you're under attack from these other people, that'll help you win. Mm-hmm. I think that's what we need to deal with. I don't think we should be criminalizing. It's abhorrent. saying racist things, doing chants at these games, which happens all the time. But what's more important is politicians who have power. These are just ordinary guys, girls, politicians who have power who use that as a strategy. It's deliberate to get people to hate one another so they can win. Not so that they can solve any problem the countries are facing. It's strictly to win. And that's your British Commonwealth political system.
Sure.
Anything to win. And I think we need something.
And I think that's the political realm, right? Which Enver is more, right? That's his realm. In the soccer realm, UEFA and FIFA they're not political. They have like ultimate power, right? Because they oversee that. I think they're a joke, personally, because they could stop a lot of that, and they don't. Like, they do token stuff, right? Like in Italy, there's, in England, and in England, they talk about, oh, these other countries are racist, and like they abused our fans, right? They said like they went to Hungary and they abused Raheem Sterling and some of these other guys. This is so terrible. English fans do this, all of the same stuff, right? So it happens in a lot of these countries, and it happens in South America, I'm sure, as well, right? So like I'm not as versed in it, right? Like I have not heard as much about it, but FIFA and UEFA could come down hard and could do penalties, right? Because that's not political, and then the talk that Enver is saying is accurate. But like within soccer, they can come down and say like, listen, if this is racism, if this is players, or if this is fans, and like you catch them, right? You could put a stop to it. There's things you could do. How do you police all the fans? I don't know. It's difficult. Like, I don't know the answer to that.
Especially when in context when you have politicians who are saying the same things.
When you have politicians, when you have politicians that are doing the same things and are cheering it on. You have Bolsonaro, right, who tries to use the national team, like tries to use these players and puppet them out and to further his ends. Yeah. So I think it's really complicated. And a lot of these guys are just trying to be athletes. They're just trying to like get by. Maybe some of them are not super political. They get caught up in it. It's a super difficult situation. I'm not sure 100% how to deal with it. I think like in England, for example, the way that they take the knee and all, I think that's great, right? That's good. I think a lot of that is also just for show, that the actual FA, UEFA doesn't do enough to protect these players, doesn't do enough that like when there is actual racism, like Italy, they've had really weak responses, and these players should feel comfortable when they're playing. They shouldn't have to deal with racist abuse. They shouldn't have bananas thrown at them. This happens in a lot of other countries. I don't want to demonize. I'm not demonizing any country, but the way that UEFA and FIFA could act, they're about, UEFA and FIFA are just, they're terrible. They're all about their money. That's about it. They're not about fostering the game. They're not about protecting the players. If they were, they'd be having less games. They're trying to do more World Cups. I have a big problem with a lot of that.
Right.
I
think you could protect the players for sure.
One of the questions that came in to go to your point, Paul.
Yeah.
Should UEFA, if you don't want to be deemed as a joke, is what it says here, 3 points right away, drop. So let's give the example of Hungary playing against England. Yeah. Right. And let's say the bananas are starting to go from the stands. Sterling, Rashford, they're getting the abuse.
Yeah.
And immediately, referee stops the game, awards 3 points to England. If that's UEFA's stance, does it ram it home? Because at that point, who cares about the ticket sales to who owns the stadium or however the stadium is generating revenue? Yeah. The Hungarian FA is faced with their ban to the ban, or not the ban, fines. Do the fines escalate on top of the 3 points? Yeah. At what point would people start to respect UEFA? Not so much FIFA, but in this case, UEFA, a little bit more.
Yeah.
And not have them being looked at as a puppet organization.
Yeah. I mean, they're totally a puppet organization. Like, the whole structure is to make money, right? Mm-hmm. FIFA and UEFA, I think they're just like an extension of each other.
Platini, this is proof of what happened with Platini this week.
Yeah, exactly. Right? Like, it's not for the fans. It's not for the players. It's for the people at the top to steal as much money as they can. And they use, like, a beautiful game and a working class game for everyone, and they abuse it, right?
Right.
Unfortunately, we also shouldn't scapegoat the fans that are necessarily, like, some of them are great, and some, like, in Hungary, I'm sure, like, lots of the fans are great, and I'm sure some of them are terrible, and I'm sure this is the political environment in Hungary that feeds into this. The game theory aspect for me is, like, if you automatically say that you're going to award 3 points, you're going to see opposing fans go in and throw bananas, which incentivizes it to be worse at some point, and then also takes away 3 points, then how do you protect against that? Maybe you find them, you find the organization, and you say, okay, like the FA, like your club has to, like your club or your organization has to deal with it, and you will get fined to the point that it's like financially or athletically difficult. But I think taking away 3 points, I think that opens a realm of competitiveness that will lead to then opposing fans getting into sections.
In terms of an England fan putting on a Hungry jersey and bringing
bananas
with
them? They'll do that. I mean,
from a strictly logistical standpoint, I'm looking at this as a high school teacher now.
Yes.
You have a gymnasium full of people,
Sure.
somebody does something.
One idiot, too, right?
Or maybe half
50% idiots,
I don't know. But why can't these organizations, even the ones controlling the stadiums, just start saying, okay, they have VAR for the game. Why can't you have VAR?
They do. England, they do for sure. Yeah.
But take it like seriously that you're banned. You
ban them. Yeah, exactly.
So if it's simply not acceptable.
Yep.
I'm not saying have a snitch line where another fan would call another fan, but they have the technology where they could say, okay, this is clearly unacceptable. Yeah. And just set a tone. They could do that.
Absolutely.
So I don't see. Are they not doing that?
Funny enough,
follow the internal
now with the pandemic, it's actually made it
video.
more. They've made it more possible now to pinpoint somebody in the stands who they are because they got in with their vaccine passport, right? The CCTV that's in the stadiums. You can see somebody now who is not behaving properly, doing over and excessive bad language, bad behavior. They're out. They lose their season ticket, whatever. Yeah. Not everybody has the money that these English stadiums do. I think that's the biggest issue.
Right.
Yeah. Even in Spain and Italy and the other Central European powers. Germany, yes. France, yes. But it's a big issue, I think, on the international stage more than anything. And politicians are all over it.
Yeah.
Unfortunately.
And that's the thing. The ones that are nationalistic, as you say, they are saying everything but what they should be saying.
Well, that's the thing, like in Canada or U.S.
And they use it.
For example, like Trump saying, they're giving space to these people. Then those people get blamed, who are usually just idiots, uneducated, very, they're incited by other people. And the people in power, who are the ones inciting them, get treated as legitimate people. And then Trump can even say, oh, look, these people are terrorists. When he and the people like him have been inciting them for years after years. And then
the culture war is profitable for a lot of these politicians.
To blame those individuals, of course, they shouldn't be permitted to do that, and they should be stopped. But then to absolve the political system, which incentivizes this, you'll never resolve it until you have a situation where people don't deliberately try to divide the population to win. So to me, I think from a political perspective, that's the big problem we have. And it's not that there's a bad person who does that. That's the way the system works.
And these politicians want to fight, like a Trump, a Bolsonaro. Yeah. They want to talk about culture wars because then they don't have to talk about. They can slip in whatever policies they want. So it's a distraction from like the real issues that they control, where it's basically this is fluff, right? Mm-hmm. Like talking about Kaepernick, talking about all this stuff, like all these political talking points they can actually make a difference, but they're talking about distractions that are not like have anything to do with that.
And this gets back to Latin America. We were talking about that's historically been the way in which Latin America has been dominated, especially by the U.S. Is pitting country against country with these objective truths, which did happen between them, but fomenting wars on the borders, fomenting wars between countries, when the U.S., which is in there trying to take everything, is presented as the savior or as not, they're not identified as the problem.
Right.
So that, to me, it's a similar issue, right? It's how do you get people, how are divisions played out and fomented?
Yep.
And for what purpose? What's the purpose? If there wasn't a purpose, they wouldn't do it.
Yeah, no, it's a good point. I watched a great little 5-minute clip on it's like Argentinian soccer players evading handshakes from the military junta in the late 70s and early 80s. And there's a picture of Passarella after winning the World Cup. And, of course, what's his name? Galtieri is there. The guy with the big mustache, right? And you have over 50,000 Argentinians missing at this point, right? And there's a guy who just won a World Cup, and his face is blank upon seeing this guy. Doesn't know what to do. Galtieri extends a hand, and you could just see
And you could be killed for that.
exactly
Yeah.
the anguish in this guy's face, and he's got the World Cup right here. He's holding on for dear life.
Yeah.
Right, and he's going. So they call it the handshake of death.
Yeah.
It's a weirdest.
Yeah.
Weirdest thing.
It's like Muhammad Ali in Vietnam War.
Mm-hmm.
So the other thing though is that sports players aren't outside of the frame. When they do take stands, it actually makes a huge difference.
It
does give expression to what's not being talked about. It puts it on the world stage. So
it does.
So even though it sucks as an athlete to be put in that position, when they do take a stand for justice, it really does make a difference.
Yeah, and you have to hope that they're actually speaking on behalf of the people, because there's that one person who might see something that like, whoa, what?
Yeah.
What did you say? And like you said, they're so influential at that point. You're just thinking, no, you're just giving them power. You just given all of these things against everything that you stood for, you're standing for.
And imagine being in that position. You're just an athlete. This is something pure and beautiful for all of Argentina. You know, but I mean, like the sport, right? Like the sport is the sport. And then it becomes in the political ring. And now, like, not only are you being forced into this position, you could be killed. Your family could be killed. Yeah. How difficult is that? That is, it shouldn't even be anywhere near it. It should be pure. Mm-hmm. But it's not.
But it's also
nothing's free of politics.
The fact that, anyway, political opinion, the situation can't be separated from sport as much as we wish it could. And so
it's always forced into it, no matter what.
So one of my last points is going exactly what you just said, Enver. People come up to me and say, Argentina and Brazil, I bet you're frothing. There's this weird small percentage inside my body thinking, you're forgetting Argentina and Chile.
Yeah.
You're forgetting this. A lot of Argentines harbor an enormous amount of resentment because of the Falkland Islands and Chile allowing the British to refuel at the along their ports, to beat the shit out of us even further. But for Argentinians, that game alone is one of hurt. I mean, Brazil's a bigger country than Argentina. They've had such a bigger history than us in terms of their success alone. But there's something about Argentina versus Chile that for every Argentinian, it's like they can't move past 82. Yet, when an Englishman and Argentinian get together, there's no problem. They're fine to discuss politics. They're fine to discuss which team you support. Oh, I've heard of Wolves, or I've heard of Argentina Juniors, and
talk about the hand of God.
They'll still talk about the hand of God, but there's a difference, and you can see
salty.
Yeah, there's a difference. You can even see it because it's become a trend on YouTube. The re-encounter between an English soldier and an Argentinian soldier or whatever, and they're talking is fine. Yet, because of a political action from Chile, political action on Argentina's part, we weren't in the right to invade the Falklands at all. But at the same time, you get those two rules, those two schools of thought, and it's played out well over 40 years later, and we're still at odds over politics.
And it's funny how the British are left out of that.
Right? It's the British. I mean, and so the thing about it is, and going back to the America Unida, this is anything but at this point. I worked with a guy at Pernod Ricard, and I won't mention his name, but he told me this great story because we were talking about my dad and the Colombia goal for Rincon. He goes, the moment I felt like that was, I was in Copacabana Beach. His dad owned a bar in Rio, and Brazil had told England that you're not allowed, or the British Navy, no jets or anything within our airspace, nothing. So the way how the British approached the channel and the islands itself was they had to make a loop, and one of the loops was coming like right off the coast of Brazil. So two Harriers went into Brazilian airspace, and within 10 minutes, whatever Brazil had, I'm not sure what they had for their air force, they took off from Rio and they rocked the beach, and it was all on everybody's radio. The two Brazilian jets went to go intercept these British planes. And he said the roar on the beach was just one of empathy and just this, come on, Argentina. It went from this funny soccer rivalry and maybe even a political rivalry too at one point to this unwavering level of support that was deafening for a country you knew was just about to get the shit kicked out of them, right? When he told me that story, I had goosebumps. And I just thought, oh my God. And again, how much do these types of things play into sport?
Yeah.
Does it cross the divide? Is it needed at times? Is it not needed? Do we just need to fucking forget about it? I mean, the world's greatest ever general, Sun Tzu, right? Wrote a book, The Art of War. And the last thing, the last resort about the art of war was to actually go into war. It was everything but that. So that being said, to not fight, to sit down, to discuss, as you said, to elaborate, to listen, to gather, is beyond everything else that we have as fans, as athletes, as politicians. At the end of the day, I ask myself, does anything to do with soccer and the political stratosphere that it finds itself in, can that ever generate into a war? Is it dangerous, or is it a good thing? And that's why I wanted to grab the two smartest Latinos that I know here today, just to hammer the issue. No, listen, I haven't met any in this fair city of ours, and I know I'm not doing them a service, but I should say educated, politically activated, and active, because it is a source of worry for me. It's a source of nationalism getting a bit too carried away, people getting a bit too carried away with how they're supposed to feel versus what they should be feeling. So, again, maybe it's an age-old question about it, but that's just my worry. I feel like it's more of a venting session.
Yeah, I mean, I don't. If a war is going to come, it's not going to be because of soccer. I think in terms of Latin America, the potential of Latin America to be economically strong, self-reliant, interrelated is massive. And that's what we got to focus on. That there's so much possible if Latin America worked together. Like Brazil is a massive country with massive resource infrastructure, connects all the countries of South America, and it's so divided from the rest of South America. Yeah. Colombia straddles two oceans. Like, there's so much potential for Latin America if
they
all
work
the attempts
together
to divide and rule are kind of overcome, and I'm sure it will happen. But that was the dream of Bolivar. That was the dream of Martí. Like, that's always been the heart, is how do we unite, not behind a system, but as people who live in the same region, have common experience, common culture with the indigenous peoples. There's so much potential, and I think it scares the shit out of the United States and everybody else, that if Latin America, like Brazil is 300 million people. If you add in all that, all the resources and everything, Latin America as a whole would be a massive economic, political, cultural powerhouse. Right. There's so much potential. I think if we focus on that, and how can Canada, as we as Canadians, contribute to that? Because
by getting out.
Well, by getting out, but also we come from that. Like that. So we're born here, but we were brought here by the exploitation of South America, and I think the potential for the future is massive. And we can't. It's hard not to worry about it, but I think the future lies in building a Latin America and a Canada that's part of it, that's not based on power, domination, control, anti-communism, anti-capitalism, but based on human relations and real human unity, not around a system or around a language even, because Latin America is not related around language. We have we're related around territory and common history, but languages
and struggle. There's a lot of struggle that a lot of the people, the working class people, can identify with in all those countries, right? And I think a lot of it is that Latin America has been stratified for years, and if we can overcome that and basically learn to be self-sufficient, and maybe soccer could be soccer, like sport, is always a way to unify people, right? Unfortunately, it's also used to divide, and it's preyed on by people, by politicians. But, playing against people is unifying. Like, you compete, you go head to head, and if you're a fan, you're not a fan. Like, I cheered for Argentina in the World Cup against Germany. Like, I desperately wanted them to win, Okay. And I think that we can all, like, you can have your rivalries, but then you can basically, like, earn respect through that. and then basically come together. And like, if we can basically use the commonality rather than the differences, then maybe that is a way to help it, help move forward. And I mean, I'm not saying that soccer is going to solve everything by any means, but it's definitely a way that it could help. It can help. Yeah. It's a common bond, right? Sure. And like, you can share respect. Yeah.
Anywhere I've traveled, the common language is it's
crazy. Of course.
It sounds cheesy.
And for a Canadian, it's so rare.
Yeah. Like every country I've been to and traveled to, soccer always was there to be like, hey, you're on a beach somewhere, you're at a school somewhere, like everywhere. China, Vietnam, South America, Europe. It's been, so it has that potential, and it sounds so cheesy, but it's like that's a common language. Much like the chemical, the periodic table is a common language. It
goes across all boundaries. And actually, a good friend of mine fought in the Falklands War. And a friend of mine in California is English, and I played soccer with, and he had fought in the in the Falklands War. So I had played with someone and met someone that had like fought in it and like has trauma from that war, right? And it's like the English and the Argentinians, like people died for dumb reasons, right?
And it's always
dumb reasons.
Yeah, and those are the people that pay the price. Yeah, exactly. Like, it's terrible for him, and it's terrible for Argentinians, right? Like, and I remember like looking back at like how they met in World Cups, and like I didn't know, and then I saw later on like why that rivalry was so intense. Yeah, because it was like the Falklands War, and it makes sense. Like, you get to see someone up front. They lost friends in that actual war, and it's terrible.
Yeah, no, I get that. It is sad. I'm always told that wars are always made by politicians, suffered by the people.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. My mom always goes back to John Lennon's naive quote, but the most profound quote: "What if they gave a war and nobody showed up?" Yeah. so innocent, but at the same time, it just goes to show you that when you talk about power and you talk about the decisions that are made, like you said, Enver, anything to win. Anything at all costs to stay in power. Anyways, sorry. I'm going to get back. I'm going to go to the last question. Top 11 players that the Villamizar Brothers had played with that are politically active.
All right. This is
let's go goalie. And you can name your dad. I'm just saying.
Yeah, I said my dad, as well as my daughter Paulina. I think she's got
what? Yeah,
she's crazy, man. She will throw her body at everything, and she takes people out. So I gotta say,
okay.
Paulina and Pedro.
Paulina and Pedro.
Yeah.
Okay, that's good. That's the number one spot done. And let's go. Are you playing 4-4-2, 4-3-3? What are we doing?
You know formations better than I do. What do you want formations?
I mean, I can't remember what the lineup fully was. Enver has it written down.
This whole podcast.
I'm a 4-3-3 guy.
I was going to say, because this podcast has a lot of leftist undertones. We have to go with a left formation. Nothing cynical, nothing conservative.
You gotta go
too broad. Let's go 4-3-3.
I like a 4-3-3. I'm a big 4-3-3 fan.
Okay.
False 9 fan.
So right back. We got it right back.
Right back.
Include yourselves.
Harry Rogers.
Harry Rogers.
He's very involved in his union.
Okay.
Unifor. And I have to say he would be my go-to.
What country? Is he Canadian?
Harry Rogers, he's Canadian. Yeah, he hails from Nigerian background, but Tecumseh veteran, still playing to this day.
Harry Rogers.
And then let's see, who did I have? My stopper or my sweeper? David Del Duca.
Oh, David.
Yeah, very involved in his union in Oecta, which are the Catholic teachers. Ups like a crazy guy.
Okay.
I think I never played. I think we played together when we were kids in Windsor Soccer Club. Then I think I played against him once. I think he played for Wilfrid Laurier.
Oh yeah.
I was playing for Windsor, and the one game I played for Windsor, he was playing.
One of the fastest players I played with.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
Crazy
oh
ups.
my God.
Yeah.
He was just
volleyball player too. I think, right?
Great athlete.
Save. I got Jermaine Ramsey.
Jermaine.
Yeah, I played with him at Lowe. He went to Lowe, went to high school together, and he's very involved in Unifor as well.
Okay.
Unifor connection.
Who do you have as a left back?
Left back is where's my left back? I think left back was you, Rob.
I'm politically active?
Yeah, man, you got this. Yeah, you're Rob. Rob Arce, left back.
Oh my gosh. I don't know if I deserve to get into this team, but I'll take it. I'll play.
You got a podcast, you got an audience. That's cool. That's
I'll take it.
Politicals it gets. You're no Rush Limbaugh, but
thanks.
Center mid.
Yep.
Zoya Villamizar. Yeah, my daughter Zoya. Absolutely, got to put her in there. She's 10 times more intelligent players I ever will be, ever was.
All right.
They're going to be the best Villamizars for sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's not hard, but they're going to be the best.
I forgot to stop her, Lisa Foco.
Lisa
She's a female
Foco.
coach, which is political in its own right, because in this environment, being a female coach, we need more of them.
That's
So
right.
the fact that she is a coach,
Absolutely.
all props to her. Any of the El Salvadorans who came out of the Civil War and came to Windsor and kept their politics, I'll put it midfield. But in particular, right midfield, I got to say Carlos Sea.
Carlos. Oh,
Yeah.
God bless.
Yeah,
Rest
Rip.
in peace.
Rip.
Rest in peace,
Comes from a
Carlos.
political family and no doubt would have been political in his own
Absolutely.
right, so. And then who else? I think that's. And then I got. So probably inside right would be Leilani Logronio.
Oh, Teddy's sister.
Teddy's
very
sister.
involved in CUPE and
Okay.
Windsor District Labor Council.
Good player.
Can run for. When we were over 40, man, she would run for everybody.
Is that right?
She's a good player. She's a good
great
player.
very
So the
strong.
opposite of Teddy?
Yeah,
Opposite
yeah,
of
yeah.
Teddy.
Totally different player than Ted. Yeah.
And
No,
then,
no flying elbows and back heels here.
Absolutely. So up top, let's go with Reese Trenhill.
Oh, Reese is
Reese
politically
is
active.
very politically
Is
active
he?
in the Liberals.
The Liberal
and,
Party,
in
yeah.
general, as
Wow.
a real estate agent, gotta give Reese respect out there.
Okay.
Gotta get sponsors from the government too, so that's he get the sponsorship.
And maybe he'll sponsor your podcast
There
with
you
his.
go.
With his
Where are you guys in
His
this
real
lineup?
estate
This is
That's not really-
crazy.
Oh, you can't put yourself
Can't
in the
put
lineup.
yourself.
Who's watching the game?
Gosh. All right. Okay. So
and
Reese.
then,
and
and
then-
then gotta put Santos Ortiz up there as striker as well.
I love
Absolutely.
Santos.
Opening the restaurant. That's
Shout
a
out
converging
Santos.
point for the Latin American community. So
Mi
obviously that's
casita, baby.
Very political to do that.
Absolutely.
And I think I got one more spot in there.
You have one. You'd have one coming off the bench now.
I'm gonna put JJ Dowhan off the bench. He's
Hota.
he's pretty. Oh, actually, no. Sorry.
JJ got cut.
JJ didn't get cut. JJ didn't
JJ
get cut.
just got
But he's
cut.
still in there.
Uh-huh.
I gotta find a spot for him. But right, I didn't do right D.
Oh.
Right D. Right, Dusty Anderson.
Dusty.
Very involved in Unifor, local 195,
Okay.
and a coach. Coach is my daughter.
Okay.
So, and then JJ's in there somewhere too because he's pretty involved.
JJ
in
could be the
Athletes
water
Club.
boy. JJ could be
JJ could be
the
water boy.
assistant water
He's
boy.
political, and what I define as politics, I think, is different than most people. I think if
Double
you work
J.
together with other people to solve problems, you're political.
I like
to me,
that.
JJ is very involved in his club. He's always been active, trying to, organize stuff. So I gotta give him props there. I wouldn't put. He'll be a strong water boy. Very strong. Water boy.
Yeah. Oh, that's good. I like this lineup. So your dad, Harry Rogers, David Del Duca, Jermaine Ramsey, Dusty Anderson, Zoya, Lisa Foco, Carlos Sea, Leilani Logronio, Reese Trainhill, and Santos Ortiz, and JJ Dowhan
It's a good team.
doing the water
For the first half, he'll come
for
in.
the first time.
JJ, you're coming in the second half. Don't worry about it.
Oh, and Paulina is
Yes.
as the
Paulina
other
is
goalie.
And Anaya. So Anaya's our youngest. She, because of COVID, she hasn't really been able to get into soccer.
Uh-huh.
So we'll see where at some point she'll
She's in the academy team.
She's in the
still
academy.
training.
I'm calling that a future right winger for sure. Not politically.
Left winger.
No.
Boys, listen, I want to say a big thank you. We've been here for quite a while now, and I just want to thank you both for your time, the energy, for dealing with my inane dribble, not having much of a structure whenever I exactly
RNC.
when I speak. But again, a big thank you on behalf of all 8 of my listeners. And I really want to thank you guys for taking the time. Yeah, for taking the time just to meet up and show me a bit more about podcasting, of course, but more importantly, discussing the topic of politics and soccer. So both of you, thank you very, very much.
Very, very much. Rob, thank you for doing this. It was great. I had a
Thanks.
great time.
Cheers. It was fun.
Yes, lots of fun. I hope we get to play together sometime soon.
I don't know.
Wherever.
My ankles and knees, they'll be the ones to decide.
All right, boys. That's it. That's it for us. I'm out, and we'll be speaking to you soon with more guests coming up. 2 more in the month of November, so it should be an interesting listen. So Thank you. Talk soon.